Chapter 4081. Grand Judicial Elder took a deep breath. Linglong Palace will bear all the losses of the treasure exchange. So now, can you please invite Miss Yi-Ching Luo out? Just bear all the losses. Is this matter that simple? Old Lai was unforgiving. Then I'll bring my brothers from Hell Palace to your Linglong Palace for a while and then bear all the losses. Are you willing to do so? Grand Judicial Elder was apparently suppressing his anger, almost causing an internal injury as his features contorted. Old Lai snorted. I've already made it clear, whoever smashed it, which hand, which leg touched the things in my shop. Punish yourself obediently, otherwise. Humph humph humph. The three ladies from Linglong Palace were so frightened that their faces turned pale, as they looked at Grand Judicial Elder pleadingly. Grand Judicial Elder naturally couldn't do anything to the people he brought along. If he really did something. If today's news were to spread. That Linglong Palace was afraid of Hell Palace, so they didn't hesitate to cripple their own disciple in order to protect Linglong Palace. If this kind of gossip were to spread. If Linglong Palace came to question Yi-Ching Luo, they would lose half of their imposing manner. Immediately, Grand Judicial Elder pounded the table. In that case, Hell Palace is determined to go against Linglong Palace. Don't King flatter me. Old Lai spat again. Do you still want to escalate the matter to two forces? Do you think I'm afraid? Ha! But you have to be clear. It's your Grand Judicial Elder who used Linglong Palace's name to declare war on Hell Palace. And not me representing Hell Palace to go against Linglong Palace. Old Lai's logical rebuttal made Grand Judicial Elder tremble non-stop. Old Lai gleefully winked at the crowd. Trying to go against Yi-Ching Luo in front of him. He, Old Lai, could make Linglong Palace doubt their lives. Good. Good. What a Hell Palace. Old Lai, I'll remember you. Grand Judicial Elder's hand trembled as he pointed at Old Lai, sneering. She flicked her sleeves in anger and led the few of them towards the entrance of the treasure exchange. Old Lai was still clamoring behind him. Don't forget about the loss of the treasure gathering. You're a dignified Great Judicial Elder. Once you say something, you can't go back on your word. The first Judicial Elder stopped and clenched his fists. Then, he stepped out of the door. The onlookers made way for them in unison. The Great Judicial Elder gritted his teeth and strode forward. He had only taken a few steps. He then heard a clear and sweet voice. Linglong Palace's Great Judicial Elder is looking for me. May I know what's the matter? There was a hint of laughter in that voice. Like pearls falling onto a plate, it was very pleasant to hear. The Great Judicial Elder immediately looked towards the source of the sound. The two pale-faced ladies from Linglong Palace stared at that direction as their voices quivered. It's Yi-Ching Luo. The Great Judicial Elder narrowed his eyes and looked at the girl in front of him. The young girl was dressed in red, and she was overflowing with youth. Her smile and frown flowed with a bewitching charm. She was smiling, and her eyes were filled with smiles. However, under that sweet smile, the great judge felt an inexplicable sense of mockery. This thought made the Great Judicial Elder's face sunk. Imperial Madam, you. Why are you? Old Lai pounded his own head when he saw Yi-Ching Luo walking out. He had finally managed to anger the people from Linglong Palace to leave. Why did Imperial Madam take the initiative to stand out? Chapter 4082. Old Lai's kindness. Yi-Ching Luo naturally knew about it. But even if Old Lai angered her away this time, there would be a next time. What's more, Linglong Palace's motive wasn't very clear. If they were really here for Mu Qilan's death. If she didn't step forward to find out the exact situation. This scapegoat would always be on her. The Great Judicial Elder looked at the figure who slowly walked out from the crowd. Her face was cold and gloomy. It turned out that this little girl had been outside the door from the very beginning. But she intentionally waited for Old Lie to make them unable to refute and left in anger before calling out to her. She had already stepped out of the door of the treasure gathering. The moment it started, Linglong Palace's imposing manor had been deprived by half. But even if she felt aggrieved, the great judicial elder still had to lead the few ladies back to the treasure gathering. Her gaze was like poison as she stared at Yiqing Luo. Her sharp gaze didn't make Yiqing Luo feel any discomfort. Yiqing Luo's thin lips curled up as she looked at her with a smile. That smile made the great judicial elder have a kind of chilling feeling. The great judicial elder pursed her lips as she stabilized her state of mind. She who had already lost most of her imposing manner could only choose the most direct. To ask, does Miss Yi know about Shadowless City's mysterious maiden's death? Yes. Yiqing Luo nodded. She had just answered when the great judicial elder's eyes flashed. Yiqing Luo continued, outside the treasure gathering, I roughly heard about what happened. The great judicial elder squinted her eyes, then, what do you want to say? Nothing. Yiqing Luo replied indifferently. The great judicial elder's expression suddenly stiffened. In that case, you admit that you killed Shadowless City's mysterious maiden. Admit? Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she chuckled. When did I admit it? Regarding the news of Shadowless City's mysterious maiden's death, you have nothing to say. Isn't that a tacit admission? The lady standing behind the great judicial elder frowned as her cold expression was filled with hostility. Immediately, she turned her head and whispered into the great judicial elder's ear, Great judicial elder, this lady is extremely cunning. She's obviously playing dumb. His voice was not soft at all. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes with a smile which didn't look like a smile as she squinted at the young lady who interrupted them and sneered, Hall Master Ji, it's been a long time since we last met. Aren't you going to greet me when you see your savior? The woman's body immediately stiffened. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows and looked at the grand judge. Are the people from Linglong Palace so ungrateful? You! That lady's face turned pale as she pointed at Yiqing Luo and stared at her furiously. His mouth moved, but he didn't know how to refute. Being criticized by a junior in such a haughty manner, the grand judge's face darkened. What do you mean? Yiqing Luo slowly picked up the chairs which had been kicked over from the ground as she spoke out slowly, Don't tell me. The great judicial magistrate doesn't know that I had once saved the two of you, Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu. Weren't the ones who pushed the tables and smashed the items in the treasure gathering hall the escorts invited by the auction previously, Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu? Back then, as soon as the crisis of the auction was resolved, Xiao Yulu also died inside. Yiqing Luo didn't pay attention to these unimportant people and what happened next. These two hall masters also took advantage of the chaos to escape back to Linglong Palace. She had not expected, they actually followed the great judicial magistrate and ran over to Without Embroiling City. Chapter 4083. When the grand judge heard this, his sharp gaze immediately shot towards the two hall masters. From her attitude, Yiqing Luo knew that after these two hall masters returned to the Linglong Palace, they probably hadn't told the Linglong Palace about what happened in Without Embroiling City. Looking at how aggressive the Linglong Palace was when they came to gather treasures today, could it be that even Xiao Yulu's death was blamed on her? Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as the smile on her lips deepened. Great justice. It's best to first understand the situation clearly before coming over to denounce. Otherwise, if you become someone else's chess piece, wouldn't that be an insult to Linglong Palace? The grand judge's expression gradually darkened. The gaze he shot towards Yiqing Luo was filled with a sliver of murderous intent. The aura that Xiaoqin emitted startled the two hall masters beside him. When they looked at each other, horror flashed in their eyes. Hall Master Ji raised her delicate eyebrows and pretended to be angry. She said sternly, Stop trying to sow discord here. The great judicial elder naturally investigated this matter thoroughly. Do you dare to say that you didn't kill the mysterious fairy of Shadowless City? Hall Master Lu immediately echoed, the Grand Judicial Elder has always been fair and impartial. He will never listen to your side of the story. Since we've come to treasure gathering grounds, then we have absolute proof. You're still trying to quibble. The two of them were afraid that the judiciary would investigate the matter of the auction, so they immediately shifted their focus to the Empyrean fairy of Shadowless City. The Grand Judge's cold gaze swept over the two of them. In his eyes, there was a deep and dense cold light. However, in the end, she did not criticize the two hall masters in front of others. But his vision fell onto Yi-Ching Luo. His expression was as cold as ice, and his eyes were sinister, as if he wanted to skin her alive. The Empyrean maiden of Shadowless City died in the Qiao family. According to the bystanders, the Qiao family head was ordered by you to lock her up in the room. Yi-Ching Luo crossed her arms in front of her chest. You still left out one person. Her voice paused for a moment, and her smile deepened. She spat out 4 words one by one, Di, Zun, Di, Ren. Locking Mu Qilan in the Qiao family wasn't just Yi-Ching Luo's idea. This was also Dmo Xian's intention. He even ordered 2 hall masters of the Emperor Palace to stand guard there. The Grand Magistrate deliberately did not mention Dmo Xian. They didn't want to provoke the Emperor Palace. But would Yi-Ching Luo let her wish come true? You don't want to talk about it. I insist on bringing it up. When the words, Overlord, came out from Yi-Ching Luo's mouth, the Grand Judge's face alternated between blue and white. He had not expected that Yi-Ching Luo would not play her cards according to common sense. Generally speaking, which woman would be so bold as to bring out her man's name? Even if they wanted to bully others, they should have done it tactfully. Yi-Ching Luo was laughing. She could hug her man's thigh anytime, anywhere. Not satisfied. Hold it in. She was just that cool and arrogant. Miss Yi, I only want to clarify the truth of the matter with you. If you continue to be so overbearing, I can't help but suspect that Miss Yi is feeling guilty. The Grand Judge could no longer hold back the anger that was surging in his heart. Yi-Ching Luo totally disregarded the berserk imposing manner released by the Grand Judge. The ridiculing smile on her face grew even more. Heh. Does the Grand Judge treat me as a fool? Kicking chairs, flipping tables and flipping things the moment I come in. Is this called as trying to clarify the truth of the matter with me? Chapter 4084. The hostility in the eyes of the Grand Justice was so violent that it seemed like it was about to set off a storm. The ones who were even more furious were the few good-for-nothings behind her. Unable to accomplish anything, but only capable of ruining things. If it wasn't for the fact that they had pretended to overturn the entire store the minute they entered, they wouldn't have allowed Yi-Ching Luo to use them as a talking point. It was also because of the actions of these pieces of trash. Their originally surging momentum was being suppressed to the point of being pushed back. From the very beginning, his attitude was like a punitive expedition. But now, they were talking to each other in a friendly manner. For the sake of the Linglong Palace's reputation, the Great Justice had to swallow his anger. She clenched her fists tightly and suppressed the raging anger in her chest. She said word by word, "This is indeed inappropriate and the Linglong Palace will take responsibility for it. But before that, please answer my questions, Miss Yi." Yi-Ching Luo curved her lips. "Great Judge, please ask." The Grand Judge asked, "Have you seen the mysterious fairy of Shadowless City today?" Yi-Ching Luo replied, "Yes." The Great Judge, "How many times have you seen him?" Yi-Ching Luo, "Once." "You're lying." Hall Master Lu's big round eyes stared angrily at Yi-Ching Luo. "How could it be possible that we've only met once?" "Oh." Then Hall Master Lu said, "How many times have I seen her?" Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she teased. Hall Master Lu sneered coldly. Previously, under the watchful eyes of everyone, you saw the mysterious maiden of Shadowless City once. Then, you quietly entered the room where the mysterious maiden of Shadowless City was imprisoned and killed her. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, her curved lips started to smile bit by bit. Because of this smile, her beautiful face became even more charming. Almost all the onlookers were dazzled for an instant. Hall Master Lu, for you to be so detailed, could it be that you saw it with your own eyes? Hall Chief Lu's expression froze, and he stammered, Although I didn't see it with my own eyes, but according to the evidence at the scene, it's you. Evidence? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. What evidence? Hall Master Lu seemed to have finally found his confidence. He quickly took out a scroll from his pocket. The scroll was unfurled. There was a jade pendant drawn on it. A red line. Below it was a jade bead that looked like an emerald. When he saw the jade pearl, his eyes widened. Yi Qing Luo's pupils unconsciously contracted. The few people from Linglong Palace stared at Yi Qing Luo's expression without blinking. He noticed the change in her gaze. Hall Master Lu immediately asked, "Is the thing on the painting yours?" Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and touched her neck. Apart from the azure dew silk chain, the jade pendant that he had always worn around his neck was indeed no longer on his neck. Her actions had already verified that the item on the scroll was indeed Yi Qing Luo's. A proud smile appeared on Hall Master Lu's face. This jade pendant was found in the hands of the mysterious fairy of Shadowless City. It should be something that the Empyrean fairy of Shadowless City accidentally tore off from the murderer when she was struggling before her death. When he noticed that the jade pendant on his neck had disappeared, he immediately felt a chill run down his spine. Yi Qing Luo roughly understood. It seemed like someone was trying to frame her from behind. That jade pendant was from when she could not control the restlessness of the divine phoenix profound heart jade and did not obtain the heart-calming bead. The jade pendant that Dmo Xian had given her. It could temporarily suppress the restlessness of the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Later on, Dmo Xian specially left a strand of consciousness in the jade pendant and saved her life at the critical moment. After that, she had been hanging this jade pendant around her neck and had never taken it off. This jade pendant. When did it disappear? And it even appeared in Mu Qilan's hands. Chapter 4085. Since Miss Yi has admitted that this jade pendant is indeed yours, then please cooperate with the Linglong Palace's investigation. The Grand Judge glanced at the two hall masters. The two hall masters immediately went forward, one on the left and one on the right, as they approached Yi Qing Luo, wanting to grab her. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly but had yet to move. Old Lai had already rushed forward and slapped one of them away. He stood in front of Yi Qing Luo as he rolled up his sleeves and sneered, "I want to see who dares to touch her." "Old Lai, are you trying to interfere with the affairs of the Linglong Palace?" The Grand Judge's face darkened. He was slapped in the face by Old Lai again and again. No matter how magnanimous she was, she couldn't bear it any longer. Old Lai's attack sent the two hall masters flying to the side. This was a slap to the face of the palace of Linglong. "Don't use the Linglong Palace Hall to suppress me. Do you think I'm afraid?" Old Lai sneered. The Grand Judge's eyes were filled with malice. His face was gloomy and frighteningly gloomy. The two of them looked like they were about to fight. Yi Qing Luo patted Old Lai's shoulder as she pulled him to her side and shook her head at him. Then, he looked up at the Grand Judge and said, "This jade pendant is indeed mine, but I don't know how it ended up in the hands of the mysterious fairy's corpse." "You still want to play dumb? It was clearly you who killed the Empyrean maiden of Shadowless City. You just want to provoke our Linglong Hall." Hall Master Lu's seemingly adorable big eyes were filled with hatred. She was half lying on the ground, one hand pressed against her chest. Blood flowed from the corner of his lips. He was slapped by Old Lie. She couldn't be angry and had to endure it. Immediately, the anger in his heart was vented towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. All Master Lu's words sounded so certain. May I ask if you had personally witnessed me killing Shadowless City's mysterious young maiden? She paused slightly, and the smile on her face deepened. A cold arc of ridicule appeared in her long and narrow eyes. Furthermore, the mysterious lady of Shadowless City is just a stray dog in my eyes. If I want to kill her, it'll be a piece of cake. Why would I need to be so secretive? Furthermore, your Linglong Palace has nothing to do with me. I am someone who is afraid of trouble, so I can't be bothered to provoke your Linglong Palace. Saying that, Yiqing Luo laughed lowly as her eyes were filled with ridicule. If Hall Master Lu has persecutory delusion, you'd better go and get it treated, otherwise it will drag down Linglong Palace's standard as a whole, making others feel that your Linglong Palace's quality, and the people, are all extremely incompetent. You. Hall Master Lu was so infuriated by Yiqing Luo's words that his face flushed red. Yiqing Luo's words were impolite. He did not give any face to the Linglong Palace. How could the great judge not hear the sarcasm in Yiqing Luo's words, as his face darkened and his tone became heavier? Miss Yi, no matter if you killed Shadowless City's mysterious maiden or not, your jade pendant is at the crime scene, so you are the suspect. The mysterious lady of Shadowless City was nurtured by my Linglong Palace Hall. I will take full responsibility for her death. What the great judge said makes a lot of sense. Yiqing Luo nodded in agreement. My jade pendant is at the crime scene, so I indeed have to take responsibility. This rare cooperation made the great judge frown vigilantly. What are you trying to do? Nothing much, just to cooperate with the great judge to find the real murderer behind this. Yiqing Luo replied with a smile. Chapter 4086. Yiqing Luo's smile deepened when she saw that the great judicial judge had yet to make a move. Her long and narrow eyes were curved, adding a touch of flirtatiousness to her beautiful face. Great judicial judge elder doesn't seem to want me to cooperate. The young lady raised her eyebrows meaningfully. She looked at the great judicial judge with some probing and ridicule. The great judicial judge elder's pupils shrank, his dark and gloomy eyes curled up his lips. It's good that Miss Yi can cooperate. Yiqing Luo suddenly cooperated. She deliberately wanted to disturb her thoughts. Since Yiqing Luo had sent herself to the door, then she wouldn't stand on ceremony. The great judicial judge elder's gaze moved. Hurry and invite Miss Yi to the Linglong Hall. The two hall masters climbed up from the ground and carefully looked at Old Lie's direction, then tensed up their emotions and approached Yiqing Luo bit by bit. Just as the two of them were about to catch Yiqing Luo, a clear and melodious laugh rang out. Wait! The two hall masters quivered and instantly froze on the spot. The great judicial judge elder's gaze sunk. What does Miss Yi mean? The young girl was still smiling at them. Her expression was calm, and there was even a meaningful smile at the corner of her mouth. Because my pendant was found at the scene of the crime, so, there is no problem with you being certain that I was the one who killed the mysterious fairy of Shadowless City. But you don't have the most direct evidence to prove that I killed her. There's no witness, no physical evidence, no wound, and the way of her death is related to me. So, what are you trying to say? The great judicial judge frowned even tighter, his heart inexplicably raised. Yiqing Luo smiled. So, I should personally prove that I'm not the murderer. How do you want to prove it? The great judicial judge asked. Yiqing Luo replied, the crime scene. Her words just ended. Hall Master Ji's face darkened and quickly retorted, impossible. You're such a sinister and cunning villain. If I let you go to the crime scene, wouldn't it give you a chance to erase all traces related to you? Yiqing Luo gave her a sarcastic glance. Long before you came to gather treasures to denounce me, you should have checked the entire house. Everyone's expression changed. It also verified that what Yiqing Luo said was indeed not wrong. Yiqing Luo laughed. I think, in the entire room, other than the jade pendant in Shadowless City's mysterious maiden's hands, there shouldn't be any other clues, so why can't I go? Hall Master Ji was rendered speechless by Zhang Xian. The Grand Judge glanced at the citizens who kept poking their heads into the treasure-gathering hall, as well as the hall masters he had brought with him. She frowned and finally said, I promise you, I'll let you go to the scene to find evidence. Grand Judicial Elder, Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu looked at the Grand Judge anxiously, their faces filled with reluctance. The Grand Judge's eyes, which seemed to be soaked in ice, swept over the two of them. The two of them were so frightened that their faces turned pale. The Great Judge cast his icy cold gaze onto Yiqing Luo. But, if Miss Yi is unable to find any evidence at the scene that can prove your innocence, then, you must obediently follow me to the Linglong Palace Hall and accept their investigation. As the Great Judge spoke, the expressions of the few people beside Yiqing Luo sunk. Chapter 4087. If Yiqing Luo went to Linglong Hall, who knew what methods Linglong Palace would use to deal with Yiqing Luo? No matter how strong Yiqing Luo's ability was. However, the Linglong Palace was their territory after all. What if he was injured? What should he do then? The few of them had yet to speak. Yiqing Luo had already opened her mouth as she smiled and nodded in response, no problem. Shaoqing Luo. Zhou Mo tugged Yiqing Luo's arm. Are you silly? Lao Lai's eyes widened. Even I can see that she said that on purpose. Why did you agree? Yiqing Luo's brows were filled with a faint smile. She looked at the concerned and worried gazes directed at her. Her half-narrowed eyes curved as a trace of craftiness flashed through them. I didn't say that I would go to Linglong Palace alone. By then, wouldn't it be better to drag Dmo Xian along? With Dmo Xian holding the fort. Why would he be afraid that Linglong Palace Hall would have any ill intentions? Furthermore, after the matter of Qiao Yulu and Mu Qiulan, the two Empyrean fairies, Yiqing Luo felt that she had to make a trip to the Linglong Hall. She wanted to see what kind of existence the Linglong Palace was. And what sort of criteria did they use to select those Empyrean fairies? Zhou Mo and the others exchanged glances with one another and did not say anything else. Alright, they were overthinking things. How could Yiqing Luo be bullied by others for no reason? It was already a blessing that she didn't bully others. The Grand Judge and the others didn't pay attention to their whispers. Seeing Yiqing Luo agreeing to this request, a cold smile appeared on their faces. Vaguely, there was a hint of viciousness. The group arrived at the Qiao mansion, where Mu Qiulan was imprisoned. The entire courtyard was completely surrounded by the female disciples of the Linglong Palace. Even Patriarch Qiao was stopped at the entrance of the courtyard. There were also many people from the forces that were staying in the Qiao mansion, as well as people from the major forces that had heard the news and rushed over to watch the show. Patriarch Qiao's face was extremely unsightly. This was probably the first time Patriarch Qiao had encountered such a situation. In his own mansion, he was intercepted by an outsider. He felt very aggrieved. But this matter implicated Yiqing Luo. In order to prevent complications, he had no choice but to endure. When Yiqing Luo, the great judicial judge and the others came over, what they saw was such a lively scene. As soon as they saw the great judge and the others, an uproar broke out. The onlookers moved away one after another. Patriarch Qiao saw Yiqing Luo, who was walking right in front. Behind her, the two hall masters of the Linglong Palace were following her from both sides. Patriarch Qiao's expression immediately changed. He quickly walked forward and said, "Imperial Madam." Yiqing Luo gave him a comforting smile as she shook her head. "Patriarch Qiao, I'm so sorry. Because of me, I've implicated you. Luo's Qiaolong Palace. Moreover, the person who died was the Empyrean fairy trained by the Linglong Palace. Qing Luo and Qiao, Qing Luo was Qing. Moreover, it would not only be the Linglong Palace, but the Mu Qiulan clan would also be dissatisfied with Patriarch Qiao. I Qin Qing Luo. Patriarch Qiao waved his hand. "Guiyu, that old man's eyesight is not wrong. My son's eyesight is not wrong either. Moreover, that mysterious maiden from Shadowless City deserves to die." Saying this, his eyes were filled with sarcasm as he shot a glance at the direction of the Grand Judge. Chapter 4088. Qiao family's patriarch was already full of complaints about the Linglong Palace. Actually, his daughter had never been as competitive as she was now. Although the sibling's mother had passed away early, and he was busy with the family's affairs, he did not discipline Qiao Yulu much. But, children born in big families would have etiquette instructors since they were young. In addition, he was influenced by what he saw and heard. His personality wouldn't collapse no matter what. Take Qiao Yinyan for example. Although he was a little apathetic, his character was excellent. He never cared too much about his status or had any other ambitions. But Qiao Yulu. Ever since she was chosen by the people of the Linglong Palace as a candidate for the Empyrean Fairy. From the little sweetheart who knew nothing about the world, she became a competitive and vicious little devil. After that, his temper was out of control. By the time he realized it, his relationship with Qiao Yulu had become estranged, and he couldn't say anything intimate to her. In particular, he couldn't stand Qiao Yulu's actions. Every time he said a few words, Qiao Yulu would look impatient, or she would turn around and accuse him of not having the right to control her. In the end, he went straight to the Linglong Palace. Once he left, he didn't return for several years. They would occasionally meet, but they would always part on bad terms. The last time they met was when Qiao Yulu became the Empyrean Fairy and returned to the clan. In family head Qiao's heart, he blamed himself for not teaching Qiao Yulu well in the past. He also hated the Linglong Palace for grooming his daughter into such a character. If not for the Linglong Palace, Qiao Yulu wouldn't have come to this. On top of that, Mu Qiulan, the mysterious lady of Shadowless City, also had such a strange personality. Patriarch Qiao could not help but suspect the Palace of Linglong's method of nurturing the Empyrean Fairy. Especially now, the Linglong Palace Hall acted as if it was a matter of course. They wantonly arranged for the Linglong Palace Hall's people to enter the Qiao residence. Even the head of the Qiao residence was blocked from entering. Patriarch Qiao's words were obviously pointing at the Linglong Palace. The Grand Inquisitor's face sunk as he squinted at Patriarch Qiao but didn't say anything. Instead he looked towards Yiqing Luo and said calmly, "Miss Yi, go in." Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she patted family head Qiao's arm lightly, indicating for him to keep calm. Then, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he slowly walked towards the courtyard. Zhou Mo and the others followed behind him. Before he could get close, he was stopped by the disciples of the Linglong Palace who were guarding the entrance. The death of the Empyrean Fairy of Shadowless City still needs to be investigated. It is not advisable for too many people to enter the scene. Bah! Who knows if you will take the opportunity to lay your hands on my sister. You are a group of bad people, none of you have any good intentions. Kitty Li glared fiercely at the Grand Judge and reached out to push away the Linglong Palace disciple in front of her. Kitty. Yiqing Luo took a look at Kitty Li and swept a glance at her outstretched paw. No matter, wait for me outside. Seeing that Yiqing Luo had opened her mouth, Kitty Li could only retract her hand angrily. Yi Qing Luo stepped into the courtyard. The Grand Inquisitor followed closely behind. Kitty Lee's eyes widened as she pointed at the Grand Inquisitor and said angrily, "Kitty knew you were up to no good. What do you want to do? Miss Yi is a suspect. If she enters the crime scene alone and destroys the evidence, then it's hard to explain," Hall Master Ji said with a cold smile. Kitty Lee was so angry that her cheeks puffed up. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were calm as she shot a glance at Hall Master Ji. Hall Master Ji was so shocked that his face turned pale as he pursed his lips tightly. She then retracted her gaze and walked towards the direction where Mu Qiulan stayed. Chapter 4089. She pushed the door open. A wave of deathly stillness hit her in the face. Mu Qiulan had just died not more than 2 hours ago. But there wasn't much stench in the room. But the moment Yi Qing Luo opened the door, she sensed an inexplicable chill. That kind of chill was a little like evil Yin Qi. But in the blink of an eye, it disappeared. It was as if what he had just felt was nothing more than an illusion. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly as she glanced sideways at the judicial officer standing behind her. The judicial officer's expression didn't change at all. As though he hadn't sensed anything amiss. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's gaze, the judicial officer asked coldly, "Miss Yi, have you discovered something?" Yi Qing Luo carefully sized up the judicial officer again. The judicial officer indeed didn't seem to have sensed the gust of Yin Qi earlier. Yi Qing Luo retracted her gaze and shook her head as she turned her attention back to the room. It was afternoon and there was plenty of light. But there was a white candle lit in the room and the flame was flickering. The faintly swaying shadows made the entire room look a little more gloomy. Yi Qing Luo walked slowly. Her gaze wandered around. She walked all the way to the inner hall, which was the sleeping room. Mu Qiulan was lying on the bed but her legs were slightly bent and stretched out by the side of the bed. She was lying on her back and the posture of her arms was twisted. Yi Qing Luo saw the piece of jade pendant in Mu Qiulan's hand. The emerald green jade pendant was sparkling with a sparkling light. Yi Qing Luo walked forward and stretched out her hand to pick up the jade pendant. The judicial officer's sleeves moved and an invisible profound energy stopped Yi Qing Luo's hand. "What are you trying to do?" "Dirty." Yi Qing Luo shot a glance at the judicial officer and took a step back. "This jade pendant was given to me by Ah Xian. If she touches it, it will be dirty." Following that, she said indifferently, "This jade pendant is merely a tool to draw your attention to me. Now that I'm standing here, this thing should be returned to its rightful owner, right?" "You mean, someone is using this jade pendant to frame you?" The judicial officer's eyes were filled with ridicule. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. "It doesn't matter if you believe it or not, I don't care. But if someone really framed me, then your Ling Long Palace is merely a chess piece in their hands." The Grand Judge pursed his lips and did not speak again. A pair of gloomy eyes flickered with a cold light under the flickering candlelight. Yi Qing Luo chuckled as she stepped aside. "Grand Judicial Magistrate doesn't trust me, so I'll have to trouble Grand Judicial Magistrate to bring the jade pendant over personally." The Grand Judge's face darkened and he didn't say a word. "I'm sure Ah Xian wouldn't wish for the thing he gave me to be in the hands of a corpse. For such a long time, right?" Yi Qing Luo wasn't in a hurry as she shot a glance at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. The Grand Judge's face twitched. He suppressed his anger and sneered. Then, he strode toward Mu Qiulan. He bent down and took out the jade pendant. The jade pendant felt cold in his hand. The raging anger in his chest seemed to be soothed by this cold feeling. She clenched the jade pendant tightly as her gaze swept up and down. After confirming that there wasn't any unknown aura or clues on the jade pendant, he then threw it to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and caught the jade pendant. She took out a handkerchief and wrapped the jade pendant before putting it into the azure dew bracelet. Chapter 4090. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about the Grand Judge as she walked directly towards Mu Qiulan's corpse. Mu Qiulan died in agony. His entire face was contorted. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed like he was killed by an enemy, making people die so painfully. He must hate her to the core. In everyone's eyes, Yiqing Luo indeed should hate Mu Qiulan. After all, Mu Qiulan and Yiqing Luo were fighting for the Overlord. Yiqing Luo knew why Mu Qiulan revealed such a painful and twisted expression right before she died. Because, in order to prevent Mu Qiulan from being controlled by the evil Yin energy in the West Cliff Mountain, he had taken the initiative to do so. The medicinal pill she gave to Mu Qiulan was able to maintain her consciousness, allowing her to remain clear-headed. The time limit is long. He had to take the antidote. In a state of extreme lucidity. His life had been ended in such a painful manner. Mu Qiulan's death was indeed quite painful. Yiqing Luo touched her chin. Well, this was indeed her fault. Then, she looked at Mu Qiulan's corpse for a moment. Coming to the crime scene, Yiqing Luo indeed didn't have much hope. After all, when the people from the Linglong Palace rushed to the treasures exchange hall, he would definitely investigate the house from top to bottom. One of the reasons why she came was to retrieve the jade pendant which Dmo Xian had given her. Secondly, he wanted to see if he could find anything special on Mu Qiulan's corpse. Seeing Yiqing Luo staring at the corpse motionlessly, the Grand Judge frowned and said coldly, "What? Did you find any clues?" "I didn't manage to find any clues, but I did see. Your mysterious maiden's death was indeed not a pretty sight to behold." Yiqing Luo replied. Great Judge, facing Yiqing Luo, she must maintain her composure. With a sullen face, she sneered and said, "Are you going to keep watching?" "Yes, of course." Yiqing Luo stood by the bed, raised the corner of her eyes and glanced sideways at the Grand Magistrate. She smiled teasingly. "Is the Grand Magistrate worried that I might notice something? Why are you so impatient? Don't think that this elder doesn't know that you're trying to stall for time." The Grand Judge's eyes were also very cold. "You just need to stall for time. This elder has plenty of time." Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. This judge hated her quite a lot. She was too lazy to argue with the Grand Inquisitor and continued to look around the corpse. He did not miss a single detail. Suddenly, in her mind, Old Man Tsang's voice sounded, "Hold on, Luo lass, I sensed a different aura from the jade pendant you just threw in." Yiqing Luo was stunned. "What do you mean?" "There's no trace of Mu Qiulan's aura on the jade pendant. It's likely that it was placed in her hands after her death." Old Man Tsang said. On the jade pendant, this old man sensed a very faint but very clear evil aura. Evil Yin Qi. Was it the same as the Yin Qi that she had sensed when she had just pushed open the door? Old Man Tsang said, "I'm afraid this is something done by Dark Shadow Palace again. If I'm not wrong, Dark Shadow Palace is planning to use Linglong Palace to detain you in the land domain." To detain her in the earth domain, could it be, was the secluded Darkness Palace preparing to attack the Heaven Realm? Heavenly Realm. No matter how powerful the person behind the scenes of the gloomy palace was, he would not be able to escape. They probably wouldn't dare to challenge the entire Heaven Realm, right? If he angered the public, the people of the Heaven Realm united. How could the Palace of Gloomy Darkness have a chance to breathe? The Heaven Realm wasn't like Nirvana Realm or the land domain which was easy to deal with. Would the Palace of Gloomy Darkness take such a huge risk? Chapter 4091. This thought made Yiqing Luo's expression turn grave. Before coming here, she had more or less linked Mu Qiulan's death to the Palace of Umbra. But he also felt that it should be impossible. After all, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness had suffered heavy losses during the auction. It even attracted the attention and investigation of the heavenly law historian. In a short period of time, if they made any big moves, it would be pushing the Dark Abyss Palace to the surface. Unless there was something wrong with the secluded Darkness Palace's brain, they wouldn't do that. But now, the evil chi on the jade pendant had already proved that this matter was definitely related to the Dark Palace. The goal of the Gloomy Palace was obviously to use the Linglong Hall to restrain her. Then the reason for restraining her, what is it? Could it be that it was really as she thought? Miss Yi, have you thought of something? The great judge had been staring at Yi Qing Luo's face, and when he saw her suddenly congealed expression, he immediately asked. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she restrained the deep thoughts in her eyes and raised her head to look at the grand judge. No. No. The great judge frowned slightly. From Yi Qing Luo's expression, it didn't seem like she hadn't discovered anything. The grand judge glanced at Mu Qiulan's body and said in a deep voice, Miss Yi, you have to understand that if you can't find any evidence to prove your innocence, you will be the prime suspect. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. I'm clear, I, indeed didn't discover anything. The grand judge furrowed his brows even tighter. Somehow, she felt that Yi Qing Luo was hiding something from her. This feeling of being kept in the dark made her feel that Yi Qing Luo didn't put her in her eyes at all. Since there's nothing to be found, then, as a suspect in the murder of Shadowless City's mysterious fairy, can Lady Yi follow me back to Linglong Palace? The grand judge's expression darkened and his voice deepened. Yi Qing Luo was very cooperative this time as she spread out her hands and shrugged, all right. The grand judge's words were blocked by the word, good. She coughed violently, and her face turned red with anger. With a flick of her sleeves, she turned around and walked towards the door. Yi Qing Luo took another look at Mu Qiulan's corpse as her vision swept around the surroundings. Only then did he follow the great judge out of the room. As soon as the two walked out of the room, Patriarch Qiao, who was standing outside the courtyard, asked, How is it? Did you find any evidence? Yi Qing Luo shook her head. The surrounding spectators sighed, and then they looked at each other and were extremely shocked. Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu, who were standing at the door, were overjoyed. You didn't find any evidence. Miss Yi, since that's the case, don't forget what you promised us. What conditions? Qiao family head did not know. Hall Mistress Ji's cold and charming red lips curled upwards, looking sexy and mature as she stared at Yi Qing Luo, like a rooster who had won a battle, arrogantly and complacently. Miss Yi has said it herself, if she is unable to prove her innocence, she will be treated as a suspect and follow us to Linglong Hall for investigation. Patriarch Qiao's face froze. Almost reflexively, he was already standing in front of Yi Qing Luo. He glared fiercely at the people in front of him. I would like to see how you are going to take away the guests of my Qiao family. Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu's expressions instantly darkened. What does Patriarch Qiao mean by this? Patriarch Qiao's expression was solemn as he was about to open his mouth. A fair little hand gently pressed on his shoulder. Chapter 4092. Patriarch Qiao, there's no need to get angry. If your health is affected because of me, Ying Yan will find trouble with me. Yi Qing Luo smiled lightly as she appeased Patriarch Qiao. Patriarch Qiao's anger gradually subsided as his expression was still solemn. Shadowless City's mysterious maiden's death is absolutely unrelated to you. Linglong Palace is obviously trying to pin the hat on you. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she shook her head. After all, they found my things next to Shadowless City's mysterious maiden's corpse, so it's normal to suspect me. Seeing Yi Qing Luo speaking up for Linglong Palace, Hall Master Ji's self-confidence started to swell again. In Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu's eyes, Yi Qing Luo's attitude changed after leaving the crime scene was because she didn't find any evidence to prove her innocence, so she was feeling guilty. So she tried to please Linglong Palace in every possible way. Since Miss Yi is so understanding, then it's easy to settle. Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu exchanged glances as they walked towards Yi Qing Luo. This is the condition that Miss Yi personally agreed to our Grand Judicial Elder. Since you're unable to prove your innocence, then follow us to Linglong Palace. The two hall masters stood on the left and right as they raised their hands towards Yi Qing Luo's shoulders. Wait! A low and dignified voice that seemed to carry endless pressure came from it. The moment this voice was heard, the two hall masters instantly froze on the spot. From Old Lai's side, a young man dressed in a black brocade robe walked out. That slightly immature face was around 20 years old. But the imposing manner emitted from him, and that pair of eyes which made one feel pressure, it was extremely incompatible with that face. The minute the Grand Judicial Elder saw that young man, his expression changed slightly. Linglong Palace keeps saying that it's my student who killed Shadowless City's mysterious maiden, but before this, my student had always been with us at the Treasures Exchange Hall, so she had no time to commit the crime. The man said expressionlessly, his voice was calm. The person who spoke was Gue Wu. The moment he spoke, it made one forget about his young appearance. Even the Grand Judicial Elder, after hearing Gue Wu's words, pursed his lips tightly, not daring to reply easily. His gaze rested on Gue Wu, as he continued to probe his identity. Right. Old man Wu is right. I can also be a witness. The imperial lady had been gathering treasures with us all this time. How could she have gone off to kill the Empyrean fairy? Could it be that she has a doppelganger technique? Lao Lai immediately echoed. May I know your name? The great judge did not directly answer Gue Wu and Old Lai's words. Instead, he vigilantly sized up Gue Wu and asked. Gue Wu indifferently spat out two words, Gue Wu. The grand judge frowned. She had never heard of this name before. However, the aura coming from this person's body was too terrifying. Even she was a little afraid of His Majesty. This man was definitely not what he appeared to be. Who was he? The grand judge furrowed his brows. Before being clear of Gue Wu's true identity, she didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. However, the great judge had neglected the fact that she had two hall masters by her side. Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu saw that they were about to bring Yi Qing Luo back to Linglong Hall. As long as Yi Qing Luo entered Linglong Palace, they were in their territory. Wasn't he still at their mercy? But a young man who looked to be in his 20s stepped in. How could they tolerate this? Chapter 4093. Hall Master Ji sneered at Gue Wu. You are Yi Qing Luo's men, so naturally you will help her. You can't be witnesses. Hall Master Lu blinked her eyes adorably, but under that Lolita face was a vicious look. Moreover, so what if Yi Qing Luo was really gathering treasures at that time? Don't tell me that you're still able to keep an eye on her at all times. Old Lai was about to say that Yi Qing Luo was indeed with them right from the start. But when the words were at the tip of his tongue, he suddenly thought of something as he stopped his mouth. After the Overlord left, they had indeed been gathering treasures and had never been separated. Later on, Yi Qing Luo went to the warehouse alone to tidy up her things. Later on, they sensed an extremely sinister aura. They followed the aura and rushed over. In a small alley not far from the treasures gathering, they saw Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo went to meet the impostor of the Overlord at that time. He naturally believed that Yi Qing Luo indeed went to meet the impostor of the Overlord during that period of time. But these people might not believe it. Especially if he really insisted that Yi Qing Luo had indeed not acted alone when they were at the Treasures Exchange Hall. If Linglong Palace grasped this point and insisted that Yi Qing Luo was the real murderer, By then, they would not be able to explain it clearly. Old Lai managed to stop his words in time. This made Hall Master Ji frown. Yiqing Luo didn't miss this slight change in expression. She was silently praising Old Lai's quick-wittedness in her heart. The two Hall Masters were obviously singing the same tune, intentionally leading them to say a fake testimony for Yiqing Luo. In this way, they would have enough reason to bite on Yiqing Luo and not let go. In this way, Linglong Palace's people knew that she had been alone in the middle of the journey. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she fell into deep thoughts. The two Hall Masters saw that Old Lai wasn't fooled and impulsively followed their plan, saying that Yiqing Luo had never been alone. Hall Master Lu's expression changed slightly, but she quickly adjusted her emotions and continued, "Why? You can't say anything. In this way, you didn't keep your eyes on Yiqing Luo from the start, so how can you prove for her?" As she spoke, she looked at Gue Wu with a meaningful gaze. The two Hall Masters were singing a duet. The Grand Judge did not speak. His gaze was fixed on Gue Wu. It was as if he was using the two Hall Masters to probe Gue Wu's identity and bottom line. Clearly, he had already treated these two Hall Masters as useless chess pieces. Once it was over, these two useless chess pieces were about to be dealt with. However, the two useless chess pieces did not feel that their future had been decided. Seeing that the Grand Judge didn't stop him, he felt even more pleased with himself. He continued, "You can't prove it, but I have a witness." Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu exchanged glances as they sneered. "Yiqing Luo, you dared to say that, before we went to the Treasures Exchange Hall, you didn't go out alone." Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly sunk. In her mind, a face that was exactly the same as Dmo Xian's, but the expression was gentle like the wind. The Palace Master of the Gloomy Palace. Before the people from the Linglong Palace found the treasure-gathering hole, she had chased after him alone because of the appearance of the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. How did the people from Linglong Palace know about it? Could it be this was his motive? He intentionally lured her to leave the Treasures Exchange Hall alone, and then delay the time as evidence. Chapter 4094. She had been feeling strange. That palace lord specially lured her out of the treasure gathering and said a bunch of ridiculous words. What was it for? She didn't believe it. On the surface, the palace master had fallen in love with her and had come to confess, and so on and so forth. As expected, it turned out that his goal was for this scene. She had indeed left the treasure gathering alone. But she couldn't say that she left the treasure gathering alone to meet that imposter. Mu Qiulan's dying words. She had finally managed to wash Dmo Xian and the imposter's name clean. It was also Mu Qiulan who had personally confirmed that the person who had been pestering her was the imposter. If she were to say that she had met the imposter in private, she was afraid. Once the public opinion was formed, everyone would misunderstand that the imposter was really a trick that she had come up with. The motive was to smear Mu Qiulan's name and ruin Dmo Xian's reputation out of jealousy. By then, she and Dmo Xian would be blamed by many in the dark. She couldn't say it. Yiqing Luo's eyes slowly sunk. "Isn't Miss Yi very eloquent? Why aren't you saying anything? Is this a tacit agreement?" Hall Master Ji's fiery red lips opened into a wide arc, smiling extremely complacently. Hall Master Lu blinked his adorable big eyes, putting on an innocent look as he smiled adorably at Gue Wu. "This master, it's not that we don't want to give you a chance to testify. As long as you can show us the evidence that Yiqing Luo was alone and had never come to the Qiao residence, we will believe her." Their expressions sunk. Hall Master Lu's meaning was very obvious. Linglong Palace totally knew who Yiqing Luo had met alone along the way. They intentionally didn't say it. They wanted Yi Qing Luo to admit it personally. Otherwise, she could only take the blame. But the moment she admitted it, this matter would implicate the impostor and Dmo Xian. This scheme was really one ring after another. In order to scheme against her, Secluded Palace and Linglong Palace were really going all out. For now, they could confirm one thing. Linglong Palace had something to do with Secluded Palace. Whether it was a cooperative relationship or a subordinate relationship, he had to investigate this carefully. Miss Yi, you've seen the scene. Now, your friends are unable to produce any evidence to prove your innocence. Now, can you follow me to the Linglong Palace? Seeing that Gue Wu didn't utter a single word after hearing the two hall masters' words, the great judicial magistrate felt relieved. As long as Gue Wu did not interfere, Yi Qing Luo, she would definitely be able to bring her away. Lao Lai and the others had yet to express their opinions. The girl's clear and melodious voice rang out. Didn't I say long ago that it's normal for you to suspect me? That's why I'm very willing to cooperate with your investigation. I hope that you can prove my innocence. She looked at the great judge with a smile. Her eyes curled up into an arc, revealing a hint of slyness. But you guys kept talking non-stop, I didn't want to interrupt your performance. Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu were so infuriated by Yi Qing Luo's casual words that their faces started to tremble. It turned out that the both of them were singing the same tune, intentionally scheming against Yi Qing Luo. In Yi Qing Luo's eyes, it was just a show. Was he messing with them? Hall Masters Ji and Lu were furious. Chapter 4095. The Grand Judge stared at Yi Qing Luo for a long time, his eyes were full of probing. But he was totally unable to see through what Yi Qing Luo was thinking about. To avoid unnecessary complications, the Grand Judge no longer hesitated and said in a deep voice, since Miss Yi is so cooperative, then, return to the Linglong Hall immediately. This time, Gue Wu did not open his mouth to dissuade him. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Yi Qing Luo followed the Linglong Palace's group and left in a grandiose manner. Mu Qiulan's corpse was also carried back to the Linglong Palace by a disciple of the Linglong Palace. The Linglong Palace was the most powerful force in the Earth domain. Naturally, he had his own branch palace in each of the three main cities. This great justice was the elder in charge of Without Embroiling City's branch palaces. But this time, the Grand Magistrate obviously had no intention of bringing Yi Qing Luo back to the Exquisite Palace's branch in Without Embroiling City. Instead, he brought them directly to the headquarters of the Linglong Palace. After being taken out of Without Embroiling City's gates, Yi Qing Luo was invited to board the Grand Judge's carriage. The carriage was sealed tightly and the light was very dim. It was likely that he did not want her to know the route of the carriage. Yi Qing Luo didn't mind at all. Not to mention the fact that she was able to draw a map in her mind based on the path of the carriage. Even though she didn't spend much effort to remember the route, she wasn't worried. Because, from the moment he left with the great judge, Yi Qing Luo's finger swept across the profound phoenix ring on her fingertip. He activated the connection between the profound phoenix ring and the profound dragon ring. No matter where she was in the land, even the Netherworld Dragon Ring could track her by following the Netherworld Phoenix Ring's aura. Nestled in the carriage, Yi Qing Luo was bored out of her mind as she raised her eyes and stared at the Grand Judge who was sitting by the side with his eyes closed. The light in the carriage was dim. The Grand Judge's face darkened. However, one could tell that the Great Judge must have been a stunning beauty when she was young. Speaking of which, the Grand Court of Justice only had around 30 or so members at most. He looked very young. His appearance was also very eye-catching. It was just that he was always in a high position, and he lived in a place like the Linglong Palace that was plagued by women, his entire body was shrouded in a layer of sinister aura. Perhaps her gaze was too scorching. The Grand Judge frowned and opened his eyes to look at her. Yiqing Luo didn't avert her gaze as her expression was very calm. "What are you looking at?" In the darkness, the Great Judge's voice was cold. Yiqing Luo stared at her smilingly, "Because you look good." The Grand Judge's expression changed slightly. He didn't look as happy as a woman after being praised. "What tricks are you playing? TSK, why can't you let me praise someone?" Yiqing Luo propped her chin as she blinked her charming eyes, putting on an innocent look. "The surroundings are filled with your Linglong Palace's people. Are you still afraid that I can stir up any waves?" The Grand Judge snorted coldly. "Who doesn't know that you, Miss Yi, are full of tricks? You're so young, but you're so cunning. I fell into your trap." Yiqing Luo made a tisk sound again. "These words were told to you by your two hall masters." The Grand Inquisitor pursed his lips and did not answer. It was a tacit agreement. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes again. "No matter what, I'm their savior. How could you make me out like this? It's too hurtful." As she spoke, she pressed her chest and sighed softly. The Grand Judge's eyes flickered. In the flickering carriage, it was not obvious. Chapter 4096. Yiqing Luo chuckled. "Why don't you let me guess? How did those two hall masters tell you about me?" She moved her body and leaned against the back of the chair lazily. Her half-squinted eyes curled into a mocking arc. She said, "At the auction and without embroiling city, they tried their best to protect without embroiling city." The Grand Judge's eyes shifted back to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo continued, "They tried their best to protect without embroiling city's mysterious maiden, the daughter of the Qiao family." Then, she paused and smiled even more. "Killed by me, not only killed, but also destroyed the evidence. They couldn't save without embroiling city's mysterious maiden." "Is that so? What do you mean by this?" The Grand Judge frowned. Although what Yiqing Luo said was slightly exaggerated, but it was almost the same as what the two hall masters said. "Amu Qiulan, because of a jade pendant, you suspect me, and the Grand Judge's attitude towards me is obviously hostile." Yiqing Luo touched her chin as she gave a light smile. "There's definitely a precondition, so you didn't hesitate at all to affirm that it's me. What are you trying to say?" The more the Grand Judge listened, the tighter his brows knitted. "Trying to sow discord." Yiqing Luo shook her head with a smile. In the dim carriage, the light was very dim, but the young lady's smile was still blooming like a flower, gorgeous beyond compare. "We don't know how far this Linglong Palace will take. If we don't chat for a while, it'll be so boring." A trace of ridicule flashed past her eyes. "If the Grand Judge thinks I'm trying to sow discord, just treat it as a joke, forget about it after hearing it." She would say these words to the Grand Judge. That was because Yiqing Luo had not detected any trace of evil qi from the Grand Judge. And the two hall masters deliberately concealed what happened in without embroiling city that day. At least it could prove that there was no relationship between the Grand Judge and secluded palace. Yiqing Luo also knew that. The reason why the two hall masters dared to lie to the Grand Judge, pushing Qiao Yulu's death to her. But it was to take advantage of the Grand Judge and the upper echelons of Linglong Palace. Such a big thing like the auction. The entire Earth domain suffered such a huge loss. Any random person would be able to find out the truth. But the people of the Linglong Palace had always thought highly of themselves and did not even bother to ask others. That was why Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu dared to push Qiao Yulu's death onto Yiqing Luo. He didn't mention it at all. How much effort had Yiqing Luo and the rest expended before they managed to spoil the plans of the Palace of Seclusion, saving the Earth domain? The ridicule in Yiqing Luo's eyes deepened by several notches. She suddenly moved closer to the Grand Inquisitor. The magistrate was startled and was about to attack Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo turned sideways slightly to avoid it and didn't go any nearer. Just like that, she looked at the Grand Judge with a faint smile and said in a low voice, "If the Grand Judge doesn't believe me, you can go and ask the people in the outside world. On the day of the auction, what did your without embroiling city's profound fairy do? And who is to blame for her death?" The Grand Judge's pupils dilated slightly as his brows creased slightly. Yiqing Luo pulled the distance between the two of them and sat back on her seat. "If by then, you still feel that without embroiling city's profound fairy's death is because of me, then I have nothing to say." Chapter 4097. But he had to admit it. Her heart was shaken by Yiqing Luo's words. After all, she was indeed disappointed with Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu's actions. Furthermore, the hatred these two had towards Yiqing Luo was too obvious. For some unknown reason, the thoughts of what Yiqing Luo had said in the Qiao residence, in the room where Mu Qiulan died, surfaced in his mind. If someone really framed me, then your Linglong Palace is just a pawn in their hands, chess piece. Could it be that the Linglong Palace had really been used as a chess piece to deal with Yiqing Luo? No, to say it was to deal with Yiqing Luo, it would be more accurate to say it was to contain Yiqing Luo. After all, the powerhouse behind Yiqing Luo wasn't just the Hell Palace, there was also the Qiao family from the Earth domain. And her biggest backing, the Imperial Palace. She was Di Zun's woman. If the Linglong Palace Hall really did something outrageous, they would definitely be killed. The Overlord would definitely not let the Linglong Palace off. No matter how high the status of the Linglong Palace was in the land. But, if the Overlord really wanted to use his full strength, the Linglong Palace would not be able to withstand it. For the Great Justice to be able to reach his current position in the Linglong Palace, he naturally had some brains. Although on the surface, he was unmoved by Yiqing Luo's words. But in his heart, he had more or less taken Yiqing Luo's words to heart. About an hour or so later, the carriage finally came to a slow stop. The curtains of the carriage were pulled open. A ray of light shone in. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes, and after she adapted to the light, she walked out of the carriage. What entered his eyes was a tall and majestic building that resembled an ancient castle. It occupied a large area. It was comparable to the Imperial Palace which Yiqing Luo had seen in Nirvana Realm. The buildings around the castle were engraved with ancient and complicated totems. He looked very dignified and noble. On the outskirts of the ancient castle, more than a dozen Linglong Palace's disciples dressed in lotus green robes were patrolling back and forth. Welcoming them were a few older women who walked out of the castle. The women's robes were similar to the disciples' robes. However, compared to ordinary disciples, their embroidery patterns were much more exquisite. From the looks of it, he should be someone with some status in the Linglong Palace. However, when they looked at the Grand Judicial Elder, their faces were filled with respect. "Welcome back, Grand Judicial Elder." The Grand Judge waved his hand and glanced sideways at Yiqing Luo's direction before saying, "Shadowless City's mysterious maiden is dead and her corpse has been transported back. Is the Hall Master in the hall?" The women were shocked. Why is the Empyrean maiden of Shadowless City dead? The three mysterious fairies have only left the palace of Linglong for such a short time, and two of them have already died. Could it be that someone is targeting the palace of Linglong? The few ladies' gazes turned towards Yiqing Luo in unison. "Grand Judicial Elder, this is. She is the murderer who killed two of our Linglong Palace's mysterious maiden. We specially brought her back to the Linglong Palace because we want Palace Master to seek justice for the profound fairies." A slender figure jumped out of the other carriage. Hall Master Lu and Hall Master Ji alighted from the carriage. The few ladies' expressions had a huge change as the way they looked at Yiqing Luo had a subtle change. "Everything has yet to be decided," Send Shadowless City's mysterious maiden's corpse to Shadowless Hall for an inspection first. I will bring her to see the Hall Master. The Grand Judicial Elder shot a glance at the two Hall Masters as he spoke calmly. Chapter 4098. Grand Judicial Elder, have you been deceived by that woman? Hall Master Ji's first reaction was what Yiqing Luo had said to the Grand Judicial Elder when they were alone in the carriage. The Grand Judicial Elder glanced at her indifferently. Hall Master Ji seems to be especially concerned about Miss Ye's matters. Hall Master Ji's expression stiffened as she lowered her head. I'm just worried that she's so sinister and cunning that the Grand Judicial Elder would be cheated by her. The Grand Judicial Elder walked straight into the ancient castle indifferently. This matter, I have my own plans, there's no need for you to say anything more. Hall Master Ji heard the Grand Judicial Elder's indifference and could only shut his mouth as he followed behind the Grand Judicial Elder. A group of people clustered together as they entered the Linglong Palace. The ancient castle was brightly lit and the luminous pearls were hung high up, extremely dazzling. Moreover, the design and decoration were elegant and dignified. After they entered the Linglong Palace, the few ladies who welcomed the Grand Judicial Elder spoke out. Grand Judicial Elder, the Hall Master is not in the hall now. The Grand Judicial Elder's footsteps paused as he made a quick turn and headed towards another direction. Then bring her to the judicial courtyard first, I will take care of her personally. The group of people headed towards the direction of the judicial courtyard. Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu exchanged glances and were about to follow up. The Grand Judicial Elder suddenly looked at a lady beside him. Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu are out and borrowing the reputation of the Linglong Palace to flaunt their prowess, ruining the reputation of the Linglong Palace. Lock them up first and wait for the Hall Master to return before we deal with them. Yes. The lady replied respectfully. Following that, the two female disciples held Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu in their hands. The two of them struggled for a moment as their expressions turned extremely ugly. Grand Judicial Elder, what do you mean by this? When did we ruin the reputation of the Linglong Palace? Grand Judicial Elder, don't tell me you've really been bewitched by that demoness. The two of them kept shouting. But the Grand Judicial Elder didn't even bother about them. Bringing Yiqing Luo, he disappeared around the corner. The two hall masters were flustered and exasperated but didn't dare to struggle as they obediently allowed the female disciples to bring them to the dungeon. Yiqing Luo followed by the Grand Judge's side, looking left and right with a satisfied expression. Do you think that I taught them a lesson because of your provocation? The Grand Judge glanced at her expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo put on an innocent look. The judicial system has long been dissatisfied with Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu, and had long wanted to give up on the both of them. What has this got to do with me? The Grand Judge snorted coldly and didn't speak again. After sending the man to the judicial court, the Great Justice had arranged for many female disciples of the Linglong Palace to stand guard outside the courtyard. He then warned Yiqing Luo repeatedly not to play any tricks. He left in a hurry. Towards a stranger like Yiqing Luo, the Linglong Palace's female disciples were extremely curious. But he didn't ask. Just like that, Yiqing Luo was locked in an elegant guest room, not allowed to step out of the room. Yiqing Luo felt that the Great Justice had purposely arranged this. Did he want her to receive the same treatment as Mu Qiulan? The chief judicial officer had either left to look for the palace master of the Linglong Palace, or to ask her about what she had said in the carriage. Yiqing Luo wasn't anxious at all. She laid quietly on the bed, crossing her legs, and had no intention to escape from the room. Just as she was locked in the room for about 1 hour. Chapter 4099. The room was silent. The surroundings were silent. This was Linglong Palace's turf. The surroundings were guarded by Linglong Palace's disciples. Who could it be? Who could get close to this room without a trace? Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she vigilantly released her perception, sensing everything around her. In the air, the floating presence was very weak. If she didn't sense it carefully, she probably wouldn't be able to detect the presence of a second person in this room. Since you're here, why hide your head and show your tail? Yiqing Luo spoke coldly with a solemn expression. She sat by the side of the bed, not heading towards the direction of her senses. Her eyes stared at that direction without blinking. After several breaths of silence, a black figure slowly entered her sight. That figure was tall and his footsteps were light and slow. He walked over. He stopped by the side of the bed, 5 steps away from her. His entire body was shrouded in a black robe, concealing his face. Faintly, a pair of cold and dignified eyes could be seen. His entire body was emitting an extremely powerful oppressive aura. He looked mysterious, powerful and unfathomable. After Yiqing Luo saw the person in front of her clearly, the solemn expression on her face froze. Her lips curled slightly as she gave a smile which didn't look like a smile. Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace, I didn't expect to be you. The person in front of her was not anyone else, but the Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace. To think that he would actually appear here. This was Ling Long Palace. He just snuck in silently like this. Was he overly confident that he wouldn't be detected by Ling Long Palace's people? Or he had long formed a cooperative relationship with Ling Long Palace, so he could move around freely in this Ling Long Palace. Yiqing Luo. Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace gazed deeply at her face as his voice sounded a little hoarse. The current him no longer appeared as Dmo Xian. That voice carried a very heavy layer. It sounded like a machine, blurring the original tone of his voice. It sounded extremely strange. What's the matter? Yiqing Luo asked coldly. Sorry. He sighed softly as he apologized helplessly. I didn't know that because of me, you would fall into this deadlock. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as her eyes were filled with ridicule. Didn't know. Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace, what are you trying to express? She tilted her head as she teased, Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace, could it be that Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace really likes me? After setting me up, you came to me with all kinds of explanations. Oh, I didn't know, I didn't do it on purpose, I really didn't know anything. Did I foolishly believe you, Palace Master of the Nether Palace? The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace suddenly raised his head. His eyes under the black robe were fixed on her. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know how to explain it. I really don't know anything about this. What I said to you was from the bottom of my heart. The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace said helplessly in the end. After a pause, he lowered his head, and his voice became suppressed. Regardless of whether you believe me or not, I still want to explain it to you clearly, Lord, Qing, Palace, Ling, Palace, Lord, Ling, Long Ling Palace, Long Palace, Palace Palace. Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace's eyes under the black robe shut tightly. Not willing to look at the young lady's mocking gaze. He really didn't expect this. How could things be so coincidental? So coincidental that everything seemed to have been arranged long ago. Chapter 4100. He was able to leave the secluded palace quietly under his master's eyelids and meet Yiqing Luo. All these were actually all arranged by his master. He was just a chess piece. A chess piece which was used by his master. He thought that it was because his ability was strong enough so his master didn't detect his abnormality. Actually, all these were all planned and arranged by his master. Secluded Palace Lord's heart was filled with guilt. Because of his own self-righteousness. causing Yi Qing Luo to be unable to explain clearly that when Mu Qiulan died, she was with him. To a place like Linglong Palace. If Master wanted to deal with her, her situation would probably be very dangerous. Thinking of this, the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace clenched his fists tightly, as though he had made up his mind. Yi Qing Luo, as long as you explain clearly that when Mu Qiulan died, you were with me, then Linglong Palace has no right to imprison you here. He looked at Yi Qing Luo, and under the black robe, his eyes could be seen faintly, revealing an earnest expression. I'll go explain clearly to the Lord of Linglong Palace. Yi Qing Luo didn't reply but raised her slender brows with a smile which didn't look like a smile, as she crossed her arms and smiled at him. Secluded Palace Lord's body turned stiff. You don't believe me? Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly, and her smile was filled with ridicule. You think I'm saying this to you on purpose, right? The Palace Master of Secluded Darkness Palace suddenly laughed. That low, hoarse, and mechanical, heavy metal voice. When he laughed, it was extremely ear-piercing. It was like a sawtooth scraping heavily in the eardrums. He was laughing. Yi Qing Luo was laughing too. Only the meaning of their smiles were totally different. One ridiculed. Another was bitter. It wasn't that Yi Qing Luo didn't hear the bitterness in his laughter. But she didn't take it seriously. Her lips curled as the corners of her lips curled into a faint smile. Yes, I indeed don't believe you. The tall figure of the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace bent down slightly. It was as if something was pressing heavily on his body, making him unable to straighten his back. Pain and bitterness encircled his entire body. She really didn't believe him. She really thought that he was just trying to gain her favor by saying those words. In Yi Qing Luo's heart. He really wasn't anything. Yi Qing Luo fixed her gaze on the man in front of her. There wasn't a single trace of emotion in her eyes, and her expression was extremely calm. Regardless of whether what you said is true or false, I actually don't care. You and I are not the same kind of people. It doesn't matter whether I believe you or not. The so-called feelings you have for me, no matter if it's real or fake, do not need a result, because there will never be a result in the first place. Every word was clear and decisive. To the Palace Master of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. They were enemies to begin with. Even without Dmo Xian's existence, there would be no result between them. Right from the start, Yi Qing Luo didn't have any extra feelings towards him. At most, he would only remember that he had once told Dmo Xian the place where she was locked up, allowing Dmo Xian to save her in time. That was just a favor. There was nothing else. Ha! The chest of the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace heaved. The surroundings were overflowing with black qi. His hoarse laughter was filled with bitterness. You're really heartless, but my heart just can't make me give up on you. His black robe fluttered, like the ink-stained clouds, slowly dispersing. Chapter 4101. His hoarse voice drifted through the air. This matter is my fault. I'll think of a way to clear your name, and also clear my name without affecting you. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly. His gaze slowly shifted to the direction where the man had disappeared. A stretch of nothingness. Only the vaguely floating yin qi in the air proved that he had indeed been here. To clear her name, she understood what he meant. He wanted to help her prove that she was not Mu Qiulan's murderer. However, what the hell was this about clearing his name? He wanted to clear his name. This time, she was lured out of the treasure house by him to meet him alone, and this was used as evidence of Mu Qiulan's murder. Did he really not know anything and was innocent? Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly. His emotions were very faint. Actually, it really didn't matter if he was innocent or not. For her. After all, he was just a stranger. There were no other strange auras in the surroundings. Yiqing Luo then returned to the bedside. As soon as he sat down, a few ladies' respectful greetings came from outside the door. Mysterious Lady of Yen. Immediately after, the woman's angry voice could be heard, "Get out of the way. Please calm down, Mysterious Lady of Yen. The Grand Judicial Elder has ordered that no one is allowed to enter this room." The woman guarding the door answered respectfully. "Nonsense." The woman pushed him to the side. "I clearly sensed his aura. It's here." Him. The gatekeeper was a bit confused. The Grand Elder of the Judiciary only brought a woman and placed her in this room. There's no one else. I'll know if there's anyone else in there, the woman said as she forcefully pushed the door open. Yiqing Luo heard the commotion outside and the creaking sound of her room door being pushed. Her but hadn't even warmed up yet. She had only been in Linglong Palace Hall for a short while. So lively already. One after another. Couldn't he let her have a good rest? Later on, he still had to brace himself to deal with the legendary palace master of Linglong Palace. Yiqing Luo was cursing silently when the room's door was forcefully pushed and obstructed by that lady and the female gatekeeper. Under such repeated actions, a "pa" sound was heard and the wooden door directly collapsed. Soon after, a slender figure strode in. The woman was dressed in a deep blue embroidered dress with a peony pattern. She looked extremely youthful and beautiful. Her facial features were regular, and she could be considered a beauty. A pair of mischievous and quick-witted eyes were searching for something in the surroundings. Yiqing Luo saw a sliver of cautiousness and anticipation on the lady's face. Anticipation. What did this woman hope to find in the room where she was imprisoned? It seemed like, did this woman just say him? Did he sense his aura? This he, does it refer to the palace master of the Palace of Darkness? Just now, he was the only one who had appeared in her room. After a round of searching, the woman did not find the person she was looking for. His face immediately darkened. She bit her lower lip hard, her face showing a bit of grievance. "Where did you hide him?" The lady directly pointed the spearhead towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo. The woman's vision fell onto Yiqing Luo. Her face instantly frowned into a bundle. That pair of quick-witted eyes flashed past a tinge of treachery and jealousy. "You are that woman who killed Mu Qiulan and Qiao Yulu." Chapter 4102. It really is you. A hint of hostility surfaced in the depths of the woman's eyes. "What's your relationship with Brother Gong?" Facing this young lady's inexplicable hostility and baffling question, Yiqing Luo asked, "Miss, who are you?" The woman's face stiffened, and she pursed her red lips. "I'm Wu Fu, the mystic maiden of Winterless City. You've killed 2 mystic maidens of the main cities. Are you going to kill me next? Since you know, why are you still trying to get close to me?" Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. "You." Mystic Maiden Wu Fu's face darkened. "The 2 of them were stupid, that's why they were killed by you. But I'm different. If you dare touch me, the people of Linglong Palace will not let you off." Yiqing Luo crossed her arms as she looked at the lady who was clamoring in front of her. This Linglong Palace Hall really knows how to pick their Empyrean maiden. 3 Empyrean fairies from the main cities. Her appearance could be considered top-notch. And their styles were different. Qiao Yulu was the unattainable type of fairy. Mu Qiulan, on the other hand, was the mature and cool type. Wu Fu was the spoiled and mischievous type. These 3 Empyrean fairies had different appearances and styles. However, the 3 of them had one thing in common. That was the attitude of thinking too highly of oneself. Compared to the other two, the Empyrean maiden of Smokeless City was clearly more arrogant and overbearing. Yiqing Luo, you'd better be obedient in Linglong Palace's territory. Wu Fu Air saw that Yiqing Luo wasn't intimidated by her at all, and even looked at her with that ridiculing expression. A ball of fury surged in her heart. Her face darkened, and her eyes swept around the room again. Tell me. Was Brother Gong here just now? Brother Gong. The palace master of Gloomy Palace was surnamed Gong. Looking at Wu Fu Er's concerned attitude, could it be, Wu Fu Er must have secretly fallen in love with the palace master of the Palace of Tenebrous Palace. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace was really lucky with women. He slept with Mu Qiulan. Now, he had Wu Fu Er on top of that. Both of them were peerless beauties. So, what he said about liking her and so on could not be taken seriously. The palace master of Netherworld Palace, whose sincerity was once again implicated for no reason, what are you laughing at? Wu Fu Er's eyebrows creased tightly as she stretched out her hand to push Yiqing Luo. I'm asking you a question, can't you hear me? Her hand had yet to reach Yiqing Luo. A sharp pain came from his arm. She let out a blood-curdling scream. Her wrist was grasped by two white and slender fingers in a seemingly nimble manner. He wanted to struggle. However, those two fingers were like boulders, not moving at all. She almost broke the bones in her hand. You dare. Wu Fu Er's face was pale from the pain, and cold sweat beaded on her forehead. The waves of pain seemed to emanate from his bones. Yiqing Luo forcefully flung Wu Fu Er's hand away as her lips curled into a cold sneer. Be careful, don't get touchy, I don't know how to be gentle with the fairer sex. Wu Fu Er's face was extremely pale as she held on to her wrist, as her eyes turned red from the pain. Even though Yiqing Luo had let go, she still felt waves of intense pain coming from her bones. Mysterious Lady Yen. When the ladies outside the door saw that, all of them rushed in with a terrified expression. The female guards' expressions were filled with terror. Mysterious Lady Yen, are you all right? Chapter 4103. Hearing Wu Fu Er's order, Wu Fu Er's eyes widened. The female gatekeepers looked at each other. For a moment, he could not make up his mind. After all, Yiqing Luo was brought back by the Grand Magistrate. They only asked them to look after Yiqing Luo and not allow her to leave the room. There was no need to interfere with anything else. But, they did not dare to disobey the orders of the mysterious Lady of Yama. On one side was Yan Zunf, and on the other side was the Great Justice. This put them in an extremely difficult position. The female gatekeepers did not move. To Wu Fu Er, this was akin to giving Yiqing Luo a tight slap on her face. Immediately, her face darkened. Are you all dead? Can't you hear me? The female gatekeepers hesitated. After weighing the pros and cons, they still flocked towards Yiqing Luo. 10 overladies immediately surrounded Yiqing Luo. One of the women advised in a low voice, Miss Yi, Yan Xuannu is the granddaughter of our Wu Yan Hall's Wu Yan Hall master. If you want to be safe and sound in Linglong Hall, you better apologize to Yan Xuannu and give in, granddaughter. This Wu Fuer was actually someone from the Linglong Palace. She had thought that the 3 Empyrean fairies of the Earth realm were chosen by the major forces and families of the 3 main cities. It was no wonder that Wu Fuer's temper and arrogance were so much more flamboyant than the other 2 Empyrean fairies. As it turned out, their backer was the Linglong Palace Hall. The few ladies took action at the same time and were about to seize Yiqing Luo. Ah! Several screams rang out. Wu Fu Er's smug smile froze on her face. In his ears, there were screams. Following that, many lotus green figures flew backward and crashed into her. Yiqing Luo. Wu Fu Air's expression darkened. She stomped on the ground and flew into the air. Those Ling Long Palace's disciples who were sent flying, all fell to the ground. Wu Fu Air didn't even look at those people. Her 5 fingers formed into claws and turned into sharp blades. They were like fine iron and cold ice, reflecting a piercingly cold light. Her figure moved and she had already overtaken Yiqing Luo. His attack was filled with killing intent. It was obvious that he was furious. The violent and sharp profound light was filled with killing intent. Damn Yiqing Luo! How dare he be so arrogant! She had been slapped in the face again and again, making her lose face. He would let her know the consequences of being arrogant. The falling profound rays and the attack which was filled with murderous intent made Yiqing Luo's slender brows rise again. Wu Fu was slightly more powerful than the other 2 mysterious fairies. The claw came down. It carried a majestic and thick profound energy. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo's quick reaction, this claw could probably leave a huge hole in a person's body. Yiqing Luo took half a step back, her fingertips moved slightly and the enchanting red light in her hand swept out in an alluring arc. It was like a blazing flame, burning brightly. In an instant, he blocked Wu Fu's sharp claws. Wu Fu was shaken by the Xian energy. The expression on his face became more and more sinister. Her delicate little face became ferocious. All right. Good. Good job. This was the first time that Wu Fu Air, who was used to being domineering in the Ling Long Hall, had been given the cold shoulder. She had not expected Yiqing Luo's guts to be so unyielding, totally not playing her cards according to the norm. The moment he made his move, she had no way out. If she retreated, she would be unwilling. Moreover, her reputation would be swept away. Thinking of this, the expression on Wu Fu's face became even more vicious. That pair of lively big eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty ferocious beast, overflowing with a vicious aura. Since Yiqing Luo was looking for death. Chapter 4104. The female disciples of the Linglong Palace, who had been blasted out of their rooms and were lying on the ground, looked at the scene before them anxiously. The maid who had followed Wu Fu Air left quietly and ran towards the direction of the judicial courtyard. Wu Fu Air's attacks were swift and violent. Every single move was filled with murderous intent. And it became more and more ferocious. It was totally different from her appearance. Yiqing Luo had already seen through Wu Fu Air's attacks after exchanging a few blows with her. And because of that, just as Wu Fu Air attacked again, Yiqing Luo had already made use of her skills to break all her attacks and forced her to retreat several steps. Wu Fu Air's face turned slightly pale. Her chest was heaving up and down due to her heavy breathing. A pair of sinister eyes, like a poisonous snake, stared venomously at Yiqing Luo. "Do you still want to fight?" Yiqing Luo smiled at Wu Fu Air with a relaxed expression. As though she wasn't affected by Wu Fu Air at all. This was the Linglong Palace after all. It wasn't her turf. Yiqing Luo had no intention to kill. She wanted to make a move to warn the others, in case a bunch of boorish people popped in every few days in the Linglong Palace. She didn't have the time to deal with them. Wu Fu Air only felt that this smile was to humiliate and ridicule her. Her facial features became even more twisted. Slut. She took a deep breath and her profound energy burst forth once again as she charged towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as a mocking smile appeared on her face. Her hands moved. The glower flame fan on her fingertips opened up. The coquettish profound light turned into a huge dragon as it bared its fangs and brandished its claws towards Wu Fu Air. The rich red light flickered continuously. The biting cold and violent profound light whistled in the air. "Stop! Suddenly, a loud shout was heard. Following that, Yiqing Luo felt a huge pressure descending from the sky. Almost at the same instant that the terrifying aura attacked him, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Yiqing Luo's fingers retracted. She quickly gathered all her profound energy around her body and formed an enchantment barrier. Her footwork moved and her body moved swiftly. At the same time, bam bam bam. Deafening explosions and explosions resounded throughout the place. Yiqing Luo's front foot had just left. The entire house collapsed with a loud bang. The profound light vibrated, and the remaining power caused ripples to appear in the air. Such powerful strength, Yiqing Luo's pupils dilated slightly. He was panting a little. Fortunately, she reacted quickly enough. He managed to dodge the sudden attack in time. How dare you behave so atrociously in the Linglong Palace? His deep voice was filled with profound energy. Every single word was like a blow to one's eardrum, falling heavily into one's heart. Yiqing Luo finally stabilized her footsteps and had yet to see clearly who the person who suddenly appeared was. Then, a green whirlwind, like a piercingly cold sharp blade, cut through the sky and chopped down. The huge green light blade was like a mark falling from the sky. Yiqing Luo suppressed the shock in her heart and swiftly took a few steps back. He quickly raised his arm, and the devouring flame fan burst into a blazing red light, blocking the green light blade. When the glowing flame fan collided with the sharp blade, Yiqing Luo only felt a numbness in her arm. Her body was forced to take another step back by this majestic aura. The huge pressure hit her in an instant. Yiqing Luo's face turned slightly pale, and there was a dull pain in her chest. She pursed her lips tightly, suppressing this uncomfortable feeling, and circulated the profound energy in her body, trying to contend against this force. Chapter 4105. Under the confrontation of the two profound energy. There was a loud explosion. In all directions, there was a large area of light that was attacking. The houses within the radius of 100 miles started to shake. A few cracks seemed to have appeared in the air because of this. Yiqing Luo's breathing was heavy as she pressed her chest and looked towards the direction of the attack. Not far away, a few figures were approaching quickly. Those people were dressed in lotus green robes, which were slightly different from the other female disciples. At the very front was an elder of about 50 years of age who was supporting Wu Fuer with one hand. His hair was tied up neatly and there was a gloomy air in between his brows. The elderly supported Wu Fuer as his venomous and arrogant gaze shot towards Yiqing Luo. On seeing that Yiqing Luo was safe and sound, there was a slight change in his gaze. She raised her chin slightly as her tone was filled with questions. Who do you think you are? How dare you behave atrociously in Linglong Hall? How dare you touch the granddaughter of my Yen Free Hall's hallmaster? While the elderly was questioning, Wu Fuer pouted as she stretched out her hand in front of the elderly. Grandmother, look at my hand. It hurts. The elderly held Wu Fuer's wrist as she lowered her head to take a look. Instantly, her eyes were covered with a layer of frost. She raised her head coldly and looked at Yiqing Luo as she questioned coldly, my granddaughter's hand, were you the one who hurt it? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she met the elderly's gaze without any change in expression. Yen Free Hall's hallmaster. That was Wu Fuer's grandmother. Her place was really bustling. One after another. Even the main hall's hallmaster was here. Then next, would it be Linglong Hall's hallmaster's turn? Yiqing Luo wasn't too clear about Linglong Hall's hierarchy. But she knew that this Yen Free Hall's hallmaster was not on the same level as Hallmaster Ji and Hallmaster Lu. Hallmaster Ji and Hallmaster Lu should be a small hallmaster of a branch hall. And this Yen Free Hall, according to the names of the three main cities in the Linglong Hall. It should be the Linglong Hall's main hall, one of the three halls' hallmaster. From the strength of this hall master earlier, the elderly's ability was definitely very strong. At the very least, if they were to fight, she wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand. While she was sizing up the old man, Hall leader Wu Yan was also carefully examining her. Towards Yiqing Luo's name, Hall master Wu Yan had actually heard of it. However, he did not take it to heart. The real reason he remembered this name, and it was because of this Yiqing Luo who had killed two of Ling Long Palace's mysterious maiden. The Empyrean maiden that their Ling Long Palace had painstakingly nurtured. It had only been a month since he left the Ling Long Palace. Just like that, two people died. Could it be that the next one would be her granddaughter? The hall master of Wu Yan Hall was worried that something like this would happen, so he summoned his granddaughter back from Wu Yan City. Unexpectedly, in the territory of the Ling Long Palace, Yiqing Luo was actually so audacious to try and kill Wu Fu heir. This was simply not putting their Ling Long Palace hall in their eyes. She was just a little girl. She was just relying on her beauty and the backing of Dizun. She didn't believe it. Would the Overlord make things difficult for the Ling Long Palace hall because of a little girl? Thinking of this, an obvious murderous intent flashed past Hall Master Wu Yan's eyes. That murderous intent did not escape Yiqing Luo's eyes. Chapter 4106. Yiqing Luo, you should be clear of your current status. Seeing Yiqing Luo not answering him, Hall head Wu Yan's expression turned extremely ugly. This was the first time she had been ignored like this. Hearing Hall head Wu Yan's words, Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a faint smile. His gaze was also very indifferent. He looked at Hall Chief Wu Yan calmly and said, "So what if I am the one who injured him?" "Ha, what a great so what if." Hall leader Wu Yan's eyes were sharp as he sneered, "You have the lives of two people from Ling Long Palace on your back. Now, he still dares to behave so unscrupulously and arrogantly in the Ling Long Palace. Do you think my Ling Long Palace hall has no one?" As she spoke, she pushed Wu Fuer towards the maidservant behind her. Following that, his eyes revealed a vicious glint as he laughed sinisterly towards Yiqing Luo. "This hall master would like to see what capabilities you have without the Overlord by your side." As soon as he finished speaking, she suddenly attacked. His figure was as fast as lightning. Yiqing Luo could only see a shadow flitting past her eyes. Hall Master Wu Yan was nowhere to be seen. She narrowed her eyes and quickly released her perception. He carefully sensed the flow of energy in the air. The moment he released his perception, the corners of her mouth lifted. His footwork moved. In an instant, his figure turned into nothingness. Bang! A loud sound rang out. The place where Yiqing Luo was standing earlier had an obvious dent. Gravel flew everywhere, and the surrounding trees also rustled under the strong wind. Hall Master Wu Yan's face was filled with pride. Just as he was about to clap his hands and retract his profound energy, under the billowing smoke and dust, there was no one floating in the area where she attacked. There were no screams as expected. She didn't frown. Instead, she fixed her gaze on him. Suddenly, his ears twitched, and the expression on his face instantly became sinister and ruthless. "Damn it!" Hall Master Wu Yan scolded in a low voice. She quickly followed the aura and turned back. But it was already too late. That fiery red figure was extremely fast. With just a few instantaneous steps, not only did he avoid his attack, but he also managed to dodge it. He quickly closed in on Wu Fu, who was being taken care of by the maidservants in the crowd. Wu Fuer was dumbfounded. Yiqing Luo's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, she only felt a strong gust of wind coming towards her. There was no reaction. His body suddenly felt light. His neck was grabbed by an ice-cold hand. Wu Fu-er's eyes widened in disbelief. In Wu Fu-er's heart, his grandmother was the most powerful person in the world. If it wasn't for the fact that Grandma remembered her friendship with the palace master, she wouldn't have been able to find him. The palace lord of the Ling Long Palace, even grandmother can take on such a great responsibility. She thought that once Grandma made a move, Yiqing Luo would have no chance to retaliate at all. Then, she would kneel and beg for mercy, begging him to spare her life. His heart was filled with beautiful fantasies. But the reality was that she had become his captive. When on earth did Yiqing Luo get past her grandmother's attack and came to her side? She wasn't the only one who didn't notice. Even Grandma didn't notice this. Wu Fu could not understand. The strength of the grip on her neck made her face flush red. She found it hard to breathe, and the whites of her eyes rolled up. The aura of impending death made her want to cry for help and struggle. However, he couldn't use any strength at all. Yiqing Luo. Not only Wu Fu-er was shocked, Hall Master Wu Yan was also shocked. The raging anger in her heart almost swallowed her rationality. Let go of Fu-er. Chapter 4107. I won't touch you. Hall head Wu Yan's eyes were fixed on Wu Fu-er, looking at her pained expression, as though she was about to suffocate. She was worried and anxious. Her hands clenched into fists, suppressing her anger. Yiqing Luo, let go of Fu-er, today's matter. Let it go. Let it go. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly, as she glanced sideways at Wu Fu-er whose face was flushed red. Yan Wu City's mysterious maiden barged into my guest room without any explanation, treating me so rudely, and even tried to make a move. My young heart has suffered a serious injury. Her other hand pressed against her chest, as her face revealed a pained expression. It was so exaggerated that it was obvious that she was pretending. What do you want to do? Hall head Wu Yan looked at Wu Fu-er carefully, as he asked while restraining his temper. As Yan Wu City's mysterious maiden's elder, not only did you not discipline her for her wrongdoings, you even made a move on me without any explanation, hurting my already injured heart once again. Yiqing Luo blinked her innocent eyes, as though she had suffered a huge grievance. Her drama queen look made Hall head Wu Yan's face twitched a few times. The gaze he used to look at Yiqing Luo was filled with hostility. Yiqing Luo, who had a hostage in her hands, had nothing to fear. If you have the ability, come and hurt each other. In this Ling Long Palace's territory. If she really made a move against Hall head Wu Yan, then she would be really stupid. Rather than making a move against Hall head Wu Yan, why not find a chance to reason with Hall head Wu Yan? Of course, the other party wouldn't listen to reason or whatever. So, this was the only way to make Hall head Wu Yan calm down and listen to her reason. Hall head Wu Yan. Calm down my ass. She was about to explode all right. Hall head Wu Yan's eyes turned red from anger. Her voice was squeezed out word by word through gritted teeth. What exactly do you want? What I want is very simple. Both of you apologize to me, and this matter will be over. Yiqing Luo put on a "I'm so kind, so cute, so considerate" expression. You dream on. Wu Fu-er, whose throat was being strangled, tried to pry open Yiqing Luo's hands and refused to apologize. She didn't believe that Yiqing Luo really dared to kill her in front of her grandmother. This was the Linglong Palace. If Yiqing Luo really dared to make a move, Yiqing Luo would definitely die here. Oh, looks like Yan Free City's mysterious maiden has a backbone. I'll have to fulfill your backbone. Yiqing Luo's smile deepened as her fingers touched Wu Fu-er's face. If you have the ability, kill me. Do you think I'm really afraid of you? Wu Fu spat out the words with great difficulty, her tone extremely stubborn. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she innocently raised her head towards Hall Chief Wu Yan. Hall Chief Wu Yan, you heard it with your own ears. This is her request, I'm only fulfilling her wish. When he said the last, "Oh," he purposely raised his voice. She seemed to be acting cute and spoiled. Her eyes were full of smiles. The expression on his face was also a pure and innocent smile. However, at the moment when he finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. Her slender jade-like fingers suddenly clenched tightly. That strength was so deep that Wu Fu's eyes rolled back and she almost fainted. However, the feeling of pressure on her neck caused her to regain her consciousness in an instant. That kind of instantaneous contact with death. It made Wu Fu's inner heart surge with immense fear. Chapter 4108. The aura of death finally made Wu Fu feel fear. She tried her best to roll her eyes as her fingers dug into Yiqing Luo's hand. Yiqing Luo. Whole head Wu Yan clenched her teeth as her eyes blazed with fire. Her profound energy was tensed up as though it would explode at any moment. You dare to hurt Fu, I will make you regret that you were born into this world. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she gave a casual smile. It's not a loss for me to be buried with Yen City's mysterious maiden. You. Whole head Wu Yan was so angry that she almost crushed her teeth. She regretted underestimating Yiqing Luo's sinister level. Regretted not being able to protect her own granddaughter. Which gave Yiqing Luo a chance. When had Fu ever suffered such pain? Looking at Wu Fu's twisted expression, Whole head Wu Yan's heart broke. She was filled with rage, but she didn't dare to act rashly. In Whole head Wu Yan's heart, she agreed with Yiqing Luo's words. Her Fu, the most beautiful lady in the world, had an unlimited bright future. How could she be buried with Yiqing Luo? What I want is merely an apology. Is my request too much? Yiqing Luo tilted her head innocently. Following that, she put on a saintly white lotus expression, expressing her puzzlement. You're obviously in the wrong. I'm asking you to apologize, not asking for your life. Look. The more she pretended to be innocent, the more "you're being unreasonable" expression. This made Whole head Wu Yan so angry that she almost threw up blood. She suppressed her anger and gritted her teeth. All right, I'll apologize to you. Let go of Fu. After saying this sentence, Whole head Wu Yan practically used all the strength in his body to restrain his raging emotions. Between his teeth, he spat out a few words. You can not. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue, so insincere. As though I'm forcing you to apologize. Whole head Wu Yan doesn't recognize your own mistake. Don't push your luck. Whole head Wu Yan was furious. Yiqing Luo touched Wu Fu's face. Whole head Wu Yan doesn't seem to dote on this granddaughter of yours. Whole head Wu Yan was so angry that she was trembling. That was an anger that she tried her best to suppress. The surging profound energy, wave after wave, rippled out in the air. The air whistled like a hurricane. A tyrannical pressure covered the entire space. The surrounding disciples of Linglong Palace were so frightened that they did not dare to make a sound. This was the first time he had met someone like Yiqing Luo who didn't play her cards according to common sense and whose skin was so thick that it was indestructible. How do you want me to apologize? Whole Chief Wu Yan's eyes were sharp as he asked word by word. Yiqing Luo replied, do you need me to teach you how to apologize? How insincere. Whole head Wu Yan shut his eyes tightly, suppressing his anger as he slowly walked towards Yiqing Luo. Immediately after, he faced Yiqing Luo and slowly bowed down. Hall Master Wu Yan, represent Fu. Hall Leader Wu Yan's waist was just about to bend down. An invisible force stopped Hall Chief Wu Yan's movements. The young girl's clear and melodious laughter reached his ears. Hall Master Wu Yan really dotes on the mystic fairy of the Wu Yan city. It's really enviable. Hall Leader Wu Yan had yet to react. He straightened his body under the invisible force. Right in front of him, he saw Wu Fu, being thrown into his arms. Hall Leader Wu Yan immediately stretched out his hand and carefully caught Wu Fu, bringing her into his arms. Fu, Fu, Hall Leader Wu Yan anxiously called out Wu Fu's name, his face filled with worry. Chapter 4109. Wu Fu took some time before she managed to catch her breath. Her little face had turned pale from fright. Both her hands holding Hall Head Wu Yan's hands were still trembling. That frightened and pitiful look. It made Hall Head Wu Yan's eyes turn red from heartache. She pulled Wu Fu into her arms and gently patted her back to comfort her. Her eyes were filled with a murderous glint as she stared at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo calmly welcomed this sharp gaze as the smile on her lips didn't diminish at all. She slowly walked towards them as her voice was gentle. She's fine, after resting for a few days, she'll be able to jump around again. Shut up! Hall Head Wu Yan shouted angrily. Yiqing Luo spread her hands out as she put on an innocent look. I'm just protecting myself. Following that, her lower lips curled upwards as her eyes rose, giving off an indescribable flirtatious look, moreover speaking. Hall Head Wu Yan as an elder doesn't know how to teach the younger generation, so I shall help Hall Head Wu Yan to discipline this ignorant granddaughter of yours, in case she gets beaten to death outside. It was still all right if Yiqing Luo didn't say anything. This one sentence ignited the anger which Hall Head Wu Yan had been suppressing in her chest. She hugged Wu Fu tightly as her profound energy burst forth as it pressed towards Yiqing Luo in an overwhelming manner. Who do you think you are? My granddaughter, do you have the right to make irresponsible remarks? The power under a raging fury. It was close to destroying the heavens and earth. It was just a moment's effort. Yiqing Luo felt that the air was surging with raging waves. She could even hear the sound of the air cracking continuously. The air waves kept on surging. One wave after another, spreading in all directions. The houses in all directions kept on shaking. The trees were rustling from the strong wind. There were even some trees which were uprooted and overturned. Yiqing Luo's face didn't show any signs of panic. Even in the face of the dark force that was rushing towards him, her expression didn't change at all. Her peripheral vision slightly glanced towards a certain direction. Immediately after, she concealed the flash of ridicule in her eyes. His footwork was quickly executed as the dark force pressed down on him. TSK. I knew it. Hall Master Wu Yan is a person who doesn't keep his word. After releasing the hostage, Hall Master Wu Yan wants to kill me. Looks like I still need a hostage to ensure my safety in the Linglong Palace. The young girl said casually, her tone full of ridicule. As the saying goes, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. I'm afraid that Mystic Fairy of Wanyan City has learned her character of making trouble out of nothing from Hall Master Wanyan. You! Hall Master Wu Yan's eyes turned icy cold as his murderous aura manifested, as he struck a palm strike towards Yiqing Luo. Courting death. Thick and tyrannical profound energy tumbled unceasingly, as though a raging tsunami was approaching from all directions. Yiqing Luo had nowhere to hide. However, this time round, Yiqing Luo had no intention to avoid it. His eyes were filled with laughter, as if he was mocking something. The surging dark force was extremely fast. But in a blink of an eye, it had already reached Yiqing Luo's face. The surrounding air seemed to be torn apart by the sharp profound light. She instantly felt that it was hard to breathe as a stuffy feeling arose from the bottom of her heart. The surging tyrannical might continued to spread. Yiqing Luo's face turned slightly pale. But she didn't move a single step. Just as that raging tsunami was about to swallow Yiqing Luo. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's surroundings, at a speed which was visible to the naked eye, was enveloped by a layer of green halo. That halo enveloped Yiqing Luo within it. It was like a cyan crystal ball, and from time to time, it would flash with cyan electric light. Bam! Chapter 41:10. Instantly, under that collision, 2 bursts of energy exploded. After a series of earthquakes. Only then did he gradually stop breathing. Whole head Wu Yan's expression changed when she saw the layer of green light which enveloped Yiqing Luo. She swiftly raised her head and looked in front. When she saw the indistinct figure in the profound wave, her expression turned steely green for a moment. But it was just a fleeting moment. Immediately after, her expression converged as she pursed her lips, "All Master." From afar, a few figures walked over. All of them were dressed in lotus green robes. But the clothes and patterns on them were totally different. Walking right in front, her footwork was steady and dignified. Her dignified hair and makeup made her youthful face look a little old. Yiqing Luo estimated that this Linglong Palace Hall Master was not more than 30 years old. Under the dusky profound wave, that person's figure was indistinctly visible. It looked like it was very far away. But in a blink of an eye, she had already appeared in front of everyone. That person didn't look at Hall Head Wu Yan. Her gaze fell on Yiqing Luo immediately. Linglong Palace Hall Master. Yiqing Luo greeted the Hall Master's gaze with a smile. Linglong Palace Hall Master's gaze sunk as she stared at Yiqing Luo for a long time before nodding slightly. "Miss Yi." "Hall Master." Hall Head Wu Yan's face turned black after being neglected. "She's the murderer who killed 2 mysterious maiden. Now that she's at Linglong Palace, she's still acting wantonly, attempting to kill our 3rd mysterious maiden." The hand which she used to point at Yiqing Luo was trembling slightly. Apparently she was extremely infuriated. "Hall Master, a person like this must be taught a lesson." Hall Head Wu Yan's hysterical accusations made Linglong Palace Hall Master's gaze shift onto her. When Hall Head Wu Yan saw that, she angrily complained, "Hall Master, look at mysterious Yen maiden, she almost. Hall Head Wu Yan. Linglong Palace Hall Master calmly spoke. That voice was obviously dignified and solemn. But it was melodious and extremely pleasant to the ears. Hall Chief Wu Yan felt a chill down his spine and lowered his head slightly. "I have my own plans for this matter." Her voice was very calm. However, his next words were cold and dignified. "However, Hall Master Wu Yan, the most basic principle of a person is integrity. As the Hall Master of the Linglong Hall, I hope that you will not do anything that will bring shame to the Linglong Hall." Hall Master Wu Yan's face immediately turned green and red. His slightly lowered eyelids hid the cold glint that flashed across his eyes. His lips moved. "You are right, Temple Master." "Hall Master." It was obviously her. She attacked me in the Linglong Palace and even tried to kill me. Grandma just felt sorry for me." When Wu Fu heard the Hall Master's words, she lifted her head from her grandmother's embrace. His face was pale and covered in cold sweat. He looked extremely haggard. Hall Head Wu Yan clasped Wu Fu's shoulder as he berated her in a low voice. He immediately raised his head and his face was filled with terror. Is not sensible, Hall Master, please don't be calculative." Linglong Palace Hall Master didn't even bother to take a look at Wu Fu. Her eyes were calm and indifferent. "Miss Yi said something very right. As mysterious maiden Wu Yan's elder, you can dote on her but you must also discipline her. Whole head Wu Yan felt a fire burning on her face. Chapter 41:11. Wu Fuer saw that her grandmother was acting so submissive. His face was filled with indignation. He opened his mouth, wanting to refute. Hall Master Wu Yan quickly pulled him back. The Linglong Palace Lord only glanced at Wu Fuer indifferently before looking away. When the Linglong Palace Master's gaze landed on Yi Qingyu's expression changed. Hall Leader Wu Yan's body suddenly stiffened and he lowered his head with a pale face. Hall Leader, I will definitely discipline mysterious Yan Maiden strictly. She will definitely bring shame to Linglong Palace. While the two were talking, Yi Qingluo who was standing by the side took a panoramic view of this scene. Just now, when Hall Master Wu Yan apologized, Old Man Song told her that there were other auras nearby. Yi Qingluo didn't need to guess to know that it was absolutely the Linglong Palace Lord who had arrived. Because of that was why she had purposely let Wu Fuer go. He also forced Hall Master Wu Yan to attack out of humiliation. The reason she did not dodge when Hall Master Wu Yan's ferocious attack was because she knew that the Hall Master of the Linglong Hall would not watch as she was killed. After all, she still had the title of His Majesty's Woman. If he really died in the Linglong Palace Hall under such circumstances, he would not be able to escape. That would be like slapping Di Zun in the face. Therefore, the Palace Master of the Linglong Palace would definitely not stand idly by. It would also make it more believable that Hall Master Wu Yan had tried to kill her. This was blatant proof. Furthermore, who knew how long the Linglong Palace Master had been watching from the dark? How much did he see? No matter what. It was a fact that Wu Fuer had taken the initiative to cause trouble and had even made the first move. The ones who were in the wrong were the two of them. Miss Yi, are you all right? The great judicial judge walked out from behind the Linglong Palace Lord and sized Yi Qingluo up. This could not be considered concern. It was just a question to prevent other troubles from getting him into trouble. Yi Qingluo's lips curled as she replied in an indifferent tone, if Hall Master had come a little later, I might be in trouble. This matter is the fault of the Linglong Palace. The Linglong Palace will take responsibility for this. The Grand Judge cupped his hands towards Yi Qingluo. Linglong Palace will definitely give Miss Yi a satisfactory explanation. Yi Qingluo raised her eyebrows. His attitude seemed to be completely different from when he first arrived at the Linglong Hall. He actually gave her a satisfactory explanation? TSK, this change is a bit too big. Yi Qingluo expressed that there was definitely a problem. It was because, had the Grand Judicial Officer verified what she had said to him in the carriage? This thought flashed past Yi Qingluo's mind. Soon, he got his answer. Because when the Great Justice politely said those words, it was obvious that he was trying to curry favor with Kiran. Wu Fuer, who had just recovered, was so angry that she almost exploded. Her face was pale as her eyes stared deadly at Yi Qingluo, as she cried out hysterically, Grand Judicial Elder. She was the one who hurt me and even tried to kill me. How is it my fault? Seeing that his granddaughter still dared to talk back to the Great Justice in front of the Hall Master Wu Yan immediately reached out to stop Wu Fuer. The Grand Judge's gaze swept over her hand, which was holding Wu Fuer's hand. He narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Hall Leader Wu Yan, there is no need to stop me. I would like to hear what grievances the mysterious Lady of Yama has. Hall Leader Wu Yan's hand trembled as he wanted to explain for Wu Fuer. A cold and dignified voice completely suppressed Hall Leader Wu Yan's words. I would like to hear it too. The Linglong Palace Master said. Chapter 41:12. However, Wu Fuer did not feel her grandmother's anxiety. Instead, she felt that the words of the Hall Master and the Judicial Grand Elder were supporting her. She raised her head with confidence and said, "Hall Master, Grand Elder of the Judicial Grand Elder, when we three Empyrean fairies left the Linglong Hall and returned to the main city, this woman killed without embroiling cities Chiao Yulu and shadowless cities Mu Chiolan." She paused and said, "After the Grand Elder of the Judicial Grand Elder brought this woman back, she wanted to kill me, the third Empyrean fairy. If not for my grandmother's timely arrival, I would have been a corpse in her hands." Wu Fu's eyes reddened as she said this. She pinched her sleeves and pressed the corners of her eyes, looking aggrieved. "She actually dared to attack me in the territory of the Linglong Palace. She clearly doesn't respect the Linglong Palace and you, Palace Master." She did not forget to direct the anger towards the Linglong Hall Master as she complained. After a while, Wu Fu raised her eyes tentatively, sobbing as she quietly looked at the expression of the Linglong Palace Lord. But, she looked at him. She felt a chill run down her spine. The hand that was pressing the corners of her eyes froze. The reason for that was because the Linglong Palace's Hall Master did not reveal the furious expression that she had imagined. More accurately, the Linglong Hall Master did not even show any expression. Her eyes looked as if they had been soaked in ice, without any ripples. Lord! Lord! Wu Fu was so shocked that she took a step back, her voice trembling. The Judicial Grand Elder of the Judicial Grand Elder sneered at her and said word by word, "Where did Yen Xian Nv hear the rumor that Miss Yi killed the Empyrean fairy?" Wu Fu's face turned pale in an instant. She wriggled her lips and trembled a little. I, the Hall Master and I have been nearby for a long time," the Judicial Grand Elder of the Judicial Grand Elder added. "Yes, from the moment you brought people to break into the guest room." Wu Fu's eyes widened. Even Hall Master Wu Yan's expression changed. Plop! The grandfather and grandson pair knelt in front of the Linglong Palace Lord, and they were trembling in fear. The Judicial Grand Elder of the Judicial Grand Elder and the Hall Master saw everything clearly. They had no way to refute. The two of them kept begging for mercy. The Judicial Grand Elder's words shocked Yi Qing Luo slightly. Her long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly. Before Wu Fu barged in, she was already nearby. How long ago was that? Does that mean he also knows that the Palace Master of the Palace of Darkness is in her room? She actually did not notice it at all. Perhaps, just now, Old Man Tsang suddenly sensed an unfamiliar aura nearby. The Palace Master of the Linglong Palace had intentionally wanted her to sense it, if that was the case. This Linglong Palace Master was really a bit scary. "Hall Chief Wu Yan, you should know what to do." Linglong Palace Hall Master's faint voice rang, interrupting Yi Qing Luo's deep thoughts. Hall Master Wu Yan shrunk back a little. His hands that were kneeling on the ground slightly curled up, and he finally said word by word, "Yes. I understand." Wu Yan walked past Wu Yan and Wu Fu without making a sound. But Hall Leader Wu Yan felt a huge pressure pressing down on her internal organs, causing her face to instantly turn pale as she felt a dull pain. But she didn't dare to make a sound. Chapter 41:13. Hall Master Wu Yan knelt down with his forehead on the ground, not daring to make a sound. "Miss Yi." Linglong Palace Lord stopped in front of Yi Qing Luo. The distance between the two was just a step away. The overbearing pressure made Yi Qing Luo's brows creased slightly. She pursed her lips and met Linglong Palace Lord's gaze without any intention to retreat. "What's the matter, Linglong Palace Lord?" Although this matter started because of mysterious Lady Yen, but Miss Ye's actions, I don't approve. Linglong Palace Lord said calmly. Yi Qing Luo nodded calmly, "I don't deny this point. Following that, she smiled faintly and her brows were calm. After all, I'm a guest invited by the great judicial magistrate. As a guest, it's indeed inappropriate to make a move in the master's house. Saying that, she cupped her hands together and bowed respectfully towards Linglong Palace Lord. Will Linglong Palace Lord please forgive me? Faced with the oppressive might of the Linglong Palace's hall master and the invisible pressure pressing down on him, Linglong's expression changed. Yiqing Luo didn't have any stage fright. Instead, she faced it calmly. This made Linglong Palace Lord's eyes filled with some probing. Especially Yiqing Luo's calm look and actions without any ill feelings really made one had no choice but to look up to her. At such a young age, she knew when to yield and when to stand tall. She knew how to use extreme measures to protect herself in times of danger. He also knew how to admit his mistakes and apologize in a well-behaved manner. She couldn't pick out any mistakes at all. This made it hard for her to continue pursuing this matter. The eyes of the Linglong Palace master deepened and the corners of his mouth curled up into a very shallow smile. Miss Ye's magnanimity makes this palace master admire you. This palace master will accept your apology. Thank you, Linglong Palace Lord. Yiqing Luo smiled as her eyes curved. This scene made Wu Fu Er, who was kneeling on the ground, eyes blazing. She almost couldn't control herself and wanted to stand up to disrupt this peaceful scene. She was Linglong Palace's mysterious lady. She was the real victim. She was almost killed by Yiqing Luo. As the Linglong Palace Lord, not only did she not help her seek revenge, he even punished her and was so kind to the enemies of the Linglong Palace. When had the Palace Lord of the Linglong Palace given them the slightest bit of face? Never. What was this? The more Wu Fuer thought about it, the more indignant she felt. Before she could do anything, Hall Master Wu Yen, who knew her well, pressed her down. Hall Master Wu Yen glared at his granddaughter as a warning. At this critical juncture, if Wu Fuer continued to cause trouble, she was afraid that she would not be able to protect Wu Fuer. Even though he was holding Wu Fuer down, Hall Chief Wu Yan's anger was no less than Wu Fuer's. She did her best for the Linglong Palace and exhausted all her efforts for the development of the Linglong Palace. But in the end, he was inferior to an outsider. Moreover, it was a murderer who had killed the mysterious fairy that the Linglong Palace had painstakingly cultivated. Just now, the meaning of the Linglong Palace master's words was already very clear. The palace master hoped that she would personally teach her granddaughter a lesson. Wu Fuer's position as the Empyrean fairy was about to be shaken. Not only that, his position as the hall master of the main hall would also be shaken. The guest room that Yiqing Luo was staying in was completely destroyed because of Wu Fuer. The Linglong Palace master immediately changed a room for Yiqing Luo. That room was adjacent to the judicial court. Basically, if there was any big commotion, the judicial court would be alerted at the first instance. The arrangement by the Linglong Palace master was to prevent something like Wu Fu from happening again. Chapter 41:14. Yiqing Luo knew what was going on. In fact, they were spying on her. In any case, this Linglong Palace Hall was someone else's territory. No matter where he lived, he would be under the watchful eyes of others. She didn't have much to say about it. Moreover, after moving into this room, obviously, there were no more people looking for trouble. Previously, it was like the Calabash brothers saving their grandpa. Now, it was too quiet. Ever since he helped Yiqing Luo to change her room, the Linglong Palace Lord did not appear again. Instead, the Grand Judicial Judge would come and hang around from time to time. After holing up in the Linglong Palace for a day, Yiqing Luo couldn't stay any longer. That day, After the Linglong Palace Master and the Grand Judicial Judge had sent her back to her new room, they had looked at her meaningfully for a long time with complicated gazes. He turned around and left. He did not mention anything about the death of the Empyrean fairy. It seemed that on the way to the Linglong Palace, the Grand Judicial Magistrate had purposely gone to find out what she had said to him. He had also gained a clear understanding of what had happened during the auction. Many people could prove that Xiao Yulu's death had nothing to do with her. Moreover, it was her, Yiqing Luo, and her group of brothers who had saved the various powerhouses in the Earth domain. This was why the judicial system's attitude towards Yiqing Luo had such an obvious change. This was also the reason why Linglong Palace Lord didn't investigate the reason why Yiqing Luo made a move on mysterious maiden in Linglong Palace. However, these are the reasons. Wu Fuer and hall leader Wu Yan would never be able to understand. However, even if she knew that she was not the one who killed Xiao Yulu, the Linglong Palace Lord and the Grand Judge still had no intention of talking to her. Yiqing Luo. So why did he bring her to the Linglong Hall? His attitude was one of indifference. Wasn't he simply stalling for time? Within a day in the Linglong Palace, the only thing Yiqing Luo could confirm was the Linglong Palace was indeed related to the Gloomy Palace. However, it was not deep. At the very least, the body of the Linglong Palace Master did not have the sinister aura of the Dark Nether Palace. In fact, there wasn't even the slightest hint of his aura when he came into contact with it. This made Yiqing Luo curious. Yesterday, how did the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace sneak into her room without being noticed by anyone in the Linglong Palace? Yiqing Luo couldn't understand and felt bored. Yesterday, it was one wave after another. She was annoyed. He was so bored that he didn't even have someone to talk to. She wanted to take the initiative to cause trouble. Yiqing Luo sighed softly as she lowered her head and lifted her finger. Her gaze fell onto her fingertip, on that ring which resembled a fire phoenix. She caressed it gently. The news had already been out for a day. Hadn't Dmo Xian followed the scent of the profound phoenix ring and rushed over to the Linglong Palace? Just as he was thinking, a few light footsteps could be heard outside the door. One of them whispered, "Don't make any noise." The person inside was someone who even dared to make a move on the mysterious Lady of Yen. "If we make too much noise, we'll be easily discovered." "Shoo! Don't talk," another person snapped. There were about 3 or 4 of them. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows. What situation was this? She was just thinking of stirring things up. Trouble came knocking on my door. But, even if he were to do so, he would have to find someone with a higher degree of difficulty. These few were obviously inexperienced little disciples. Running here, other than sending their heads, what else could they do? Chapter 41:15. Women make things difficult for other women because of these few points. A female disciple pretended to be experienced. What? It's either jealousy or jealousy or jealousy. The female disciple replied. TSK. No matter what, it's all jealousy. This jealousy thing is different. The female disciple was unfathomable. Everyone knows that our Linglong Palace's mysterious maiden is a rare beauty under the heavens. Her looks are superb and her status is something that everyone looks up to. Do you think that woman named Yiqing Luo wouldn't be jealous? That's true. The other female disciples nodded in agreement. The female disciple snorted coldly, so. Because of jealousy, her heart is already twisted. All of you lower your voices, don't let her hear you. The person who berated them earlier reprimanded again. We're here on behalf of Yan Xiannu to see if she's secretly plotting to kill Yan Xiannu. If she finds out, all of us will be in trouble. The few female disciples sighed and didn't say another word. Yiqing Luo leaned against the headboard, listening to what the female disciples said outside the door. After hearing that, she couldn't help but raised her brows. These female disciples were duped by Wu Fu Air to see what she was doing. What was he up to this time? She was just punished by the Linglong Palace Lord yesterday. Now she had the energy to stir up trouble again. When the few female disciples quietly pushed open Yiqing Luo's room window, revealing a small gap, and were about to cast their vision into the room, the female disciples looked into a pair of charming eyes that were smiling faintly. Just a glance. They felt their hearts tightening. Not from shock, but their souls were captivated by this gorgeous face in front of them. She even forgot to breathe because of this. That pair of long and narrow eyes were sparkling like the stars, dazzling and dazzling. That pink lips curled into a smile. Even though they were females, they felt their faces and ears turning red, as though they were being teased. You. Someone regained his senses, as he ignorantly pointed at Yiqing Luo, as he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly as she waved her hand at them. I'm the one whom you mentioned. Jealous of your mysterious maiden of hell, Yiqing Luo, what a coincidence. You are. The women's faces turned pale with fright when they heard this. One by one, they were so scared that they fell out of the window and sat on the ground. Yiqing Luo leaned over and leaned against the window. He stuck his head out to look at the ground. There were 4 female disciples in total. Each of them looked to be about 13 or 14 years old. He was also very handsome. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. Aren't you here to see me? Why are you so surprised to see me? The 4 female disciples stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. He was both shocked and astonished. Especially when she said that Yiqing Luo was jealous of Wu Fu Air's female disciple, her face seemed to be on fire. His pair of eyes, almost as though he was dead set on Yiqing Luo's face. The young lady in front of him had a gorgeous face, peerless elegance. Her fiery red robe set off that gorgeous face, which was very enchanting. Every smile and frown was a suffocating charm. It could be said. This young lady was the most beautiful lady they had ever seen since they were born. What did they say about jealousy, envy? Chapter 41:16. Wu Fu Air's looks were totally incomparable to Yiqing Luo's. How could Yiqing Luo possibly be jealous of Wu Fu Air or the other 2 mysterious maidens who were already dead? What a slap to the face. The female disciples' breathing became erratic. Their faces turned red. He crawled up from the ground in a panic. The few female disciples patted off the dust on their bodies, as they were embarrassed and irritated, not daring to take a look at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo leaned against the window and tilted her head as her smile deepened. These female disciples were really innocent and adorable. He didn't expect that there would be such a naive young lady in the Linglong Palace. These were probably children who had yet to undergo training and had just entered the Linglong Palace. These women were merely being used by Wu Fu Air. Yiqing Luo had no intention to haggle with them. Just as he was about to say something to tease them, he told them to leave. But the words were on the tip of his tongue. Before he could say a word, these few female disciples suddenly had a change in expression as all of them held onto their own chests, their eyes widened as they stared deadly at Yiqing Luo. All 4 of them had the same expression on their faces, and all of them were in pain. Yiqing Luo immediately swallowed back the words that were in her mouth. What happened? She flipped over and jumped out from the window. She quickly moved to the front of the female disciples and checked their pulse. The 4 female disciples widened their eyes in agony as they shook their heads desperately at her. But he couldn't say a word. In just a moment, their faces were covered with a layer of greenish black. Poison. You guys are poisoned. The moment she felt their pulse, Yiqing Luo could tell that something was amiss. The female disciples were like fish on the shore, one hand pressing on their chest, the other desperately waving, as if they were grasping at a life-saving straw. The fear of death filled their eyes. Without waiting for Yiqing Luo to take out the antidote from the profound phoenix ring, the faces of the 4 female disciples were already covered with a layer of black. Then, he stopped breathing and fell to the ground. At the same time, an urgent and sharp voice rang out, "Judicial elders, this subordinate is absolutely not talking nonsense. I saw all of this with my own eyes, and if I don't rush over in time, I'm afraid. Following that, a middle-aged woman led 3 women dressed in elder robes over. When he saw Yiqing Luo half squatting on the ground and 4 female disciples lying on the ground, that middle-aged woman practically sprinted over as she stretched out her hand to tug Yiqing Luo. "You're great. Witness and material evidence are all here. Let's see how you're going to quibble." Only, her hand had yet to touch Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo dodged sideways. She took a few steps back from the middle-aged woman, and a cold glint flashed across her eyes. If she still couldn't figure out that this was a trap, she would be an idiot. It was obvious that this was a trap set up by Wu Fu Air, or more accurately, Hall leader Wu Yan. He had purposely used these 4 female disciples to deal with her. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? Coincidentally, these 4 female disciples died in front of her. Someone rushed over with the judicial elders, and they happened to see it clearly. In order to deal with her, that pair of grandfather and grandson had really put in a lot of effort. He could even sacrifice his own disciple. These 4 female disciples who had just entered Linglong Palace were just a few small cannon fodder. What's going on? Chapter 41:17. The Grand Judge had just left Yiqing Luo's room 2 hours ago. At that time, Yiqing Luo didn't show any signs of abnormality. What else could it be? I've long heard from Hall Master Wu Yan that this Miss Yi is arrogant, but I had not expected her to be so arrogant. A lady behind the Grand Judge sneered. Yesterday she injured Yan Xian NV and today she killed 4 new disciples of Linglong Palace. Second Judge, aren't your words a little too arbitrary? The Grand Judge frowned as she took a look at the lady who choked. What exactly happened? We will only know after we investigate. Grand Judge, Miss Yi was brought back to Linglong Palace by you, and the person who made Linglong Palace into such a foul atmosphere is also you. Her lips twitched coldly as her eyes were filled with ridicule. Now, you still want to argue for her? Grand Judge, are you muddle-headed? The Grand Judge's face sunk a few degrees. Even Yiqing Luo, who was a bystander, could tell that the undercurrent between the 2 courts was surging. At this moment, the 3rd lady immediately stood up and eased the atmosphere. Grand Judge, Second Judge. Although we saw 4 female disciples died in front of Miss Yi, but after all, we have not seen it with our own eyes. How did Miss Yi kill the 4 female disciples? It's still too early to say anything now. She pulled the Grand Judge and the Second Judge. Let's wait for Hall Master to return and report this matter to him before we make a decision. Although this lady said that she was trying to be a peacemaker. However, from her tone and words, one could tell that she had a different opinion. She was certain that they were killed by Yiqing Luo. Right now, they were just lacking the most crucial evidence. The Grand Judge shook off that person's hand. Third Judge, don't think that I don't know what you and Second Judge are trying to do. What can we do? The 3rd Judicial Judge pushed the 1st Judicial Judge's arm and smiled warmly, for female disciples have indeed died here, and Miss Yi was indeed beside them. In addition, Protector Fan saw it with his own eyes. All of this can't be faked. It's understandable that the 2nd Judicial Judge would suspect Miss Yi. The Grand Judge's face darkened as his gaze shot towards Yiqing Luo. What do you have to explain? What else is there to explain? Protector Fan saw with his own eyes that she bullied the new disciple of the Linglong Palace Hall and specially went to the judicial court to invite us over. What's there to explain? The second judicial court's eyes were cold and fierce as he shouted angrily. Immediately following that, he shot his vision towards that middle-aged woman who went to capture Yiqing Luo earlier. The middle-aged woman, Protector Fan, immediately nodded and replied, "Yes, that's right. When I saw Miss Yi bullying the new disciple, I hurriedly rushed to the judicial court. In less than half an incense's time, Miss Yi killed him." The second elder sneered. This elder will definitely seek justice for the disciples in the hall. She raised her hand and said sternly, "Men, take the female disciple's body away and examine it carefully. Find out the cause of death." Soon, other female disciples walked over in an orderly manner. Who dares move? The first judicial officer was obviously infuriated by the second judicial officer's attitude. His face darkened as he said, "No one is allowed to touch these 4 corpses before the hall master returns. The female disciples have just died. Do you want them to be unable to rest in peace even after they die?" Second preceptor asked. Chapter 41:18. Tamper. What kind of people do you think we are? The second judicial elder's face sank as he bent down to grab those dead female disciples. Seeing the second judicial elder making a move, the first judicial elder naturally would not stand idly by. Their arms collided. Immediately, the profound energy surged wildly in all directions. Gusts of hurricanes were emitted from their intertwined hands. Very quickly, the two of them were in a mess. The other disciples immediately dodged. The third judicial elder stood on the spot with a smile, staring at the two of them, without any intention to stop them. It was obvious that they had long been used to such a situation. It seemed that the first judicial elder and second judicial elder were notorious for not getting along. It was common for them to fight. Yiqing Luo's line of sight slowly shifted from the two of them to the 3 judicial officers. Her charming eyes narrowed slightly. Her pink lips were slightly pursed. A trace of light flashed past her eyes. She didn't know why, but compared to those two, Yiqing Luo had a strange feeling towards this third elder who seemed to be trying to smooth things over. Perhaps Yiqing Luo's gaze was too obvious. The third judicial elder who had been smiling at the two of them suddenly turned his head and followed Yiqing Luo's gaze. Their line of sight collided. Yiqing Luo also didn't feel embarrassed after being discovered by others. Instead, she calmly raised her eyebrows and said with a faint smile, "Third judicial elder doesn't intend to stop them?" The third judicial elder was all smiles. At this age, coupled with the amiability between his brows, he looked like an amiable grandmother. But the more such emotions. The moon made the strange feeling in Yiqing Luo's heart intensified. The third judicial elder shook his head. The two of them have been fighting for a lifetime, they are used to it. When they are tired, they will naturally stop. Yiqing Luo hooked her lips and didn't respond. It was the third judicial elder who opened up the topic, walked towards Yiqing Luo and asked with a smile, "The first judicial elder treats you really well. Yesterday for you, they did not hesitate to invite the hall master to change your room, and today for you, they fought with the second judicial elder." She sounded like she was just having a casual chat. But the meaning of probing in her words was still very obvious. It seemed that the third judicial elder felt that she and the first judicial elder might have reached an unspeakable deal. This was also a test. What was the relationship between her and the judge? Yiqing Luo pretended not to understand the deeper meaning in her words, tilted her head, and her slender fingers curled up a strand of hair hanging on her shoulder. "Third judicial magistrate's words are wrong." "What do you mean?" After all, I was personally brought back by the Grand Inquisitor. I can barely be considered a guest. But the mysterious Lady of Yen came to find trouble with me without any explanation and even tried to kill me. Hall Master Wu Yen, for the sake of his own granddaughter, the two of them tried to take my life. Isn't this a slap in the face to the great justice system? Yi Qing Luo propped her chin as she replied with a beaming smile, as for now. You've said it yourself, the both of them have been fighting for their entire lives and now they're merely making use of this matter to make a fuss. Yi Qing Luo's words made the three judges speechless. Yi Qing Luo took another look at the two who were entangled in battle and said, "Do you believe that if the second judicial judge were to stand on my side today, the person who insisted that I killed the 4 female disciples would be the first judicial judge?" Chapter 41:19. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she lowered her eyes to look at the 4 heavily poisoned female disciples whose faces were pitch black. What a pity that these innocent and naive children have become the first batch of sacrifices. Children. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, the 3 judges felt a little strange. Isn't Miss Yi only 15 or 16 years old? Bam! Rumble, just as the both of them were talking. The surroundings suddenly exploded with a deafening sound. The two's energy collided heavily. Between heaven and earth, sand and pebbles flew as the profound waves surged. The air seemed to have split open into numerous cracks. Wave after wave, reverberating in all directions. Yi Qing Luo and the 3 judges leapt up at the same time, swiftly avoiding the affected areas. The violent energy was like a tide, cracking the ground. The house shook as sand and pebbles flew up. After the two of them collided, they quickly rushed together again. Bam! There was another explosion. But it wasn't just the both of them who collided. But a breathtaking and violent energy suddenly rushed into the profound wave which the both of them were entangled in. That valiant and overbearing energy. Almost in an instant, it broke through the surging energy between the both of them. It also easily blocked the two's burning battle intent. Yi Qing Luo, who was hiding in the safe zone, raised her head up, looking towards the direction of the third energy attack. He saw that graceful and noble woman slowly walk out from the air ripples that filled the sky. She was standing in the middle of the Great Judicial and Second Judicial. A pair of calm and emotionless eyes stared at the two of them quietly. Even if she didn't speak, they could clearly feel the kind of awe-inspiring, imposing manner from her. The two of them who were entangled in battle were interrupted by someone. But they didn't dare to reveal any anger on their faces. Instead, they swiftly stood up straight and respectfully bowed towards the lady who suddenly appeared, Palace Lord. "Have you two had enough?" Linglong Palace Lord spoke indifferently, with a trace of coldness in her tone. The both of them trembled as they suddenly knelt on the ground. "Palace Lord, please forgive us." The Linglong Palace Master's pitch-black eyes were as calm as still water. "As a judicial elder, have you forgotten the rules of the Linglong Palace? We wouldn't dare." Both of them pressed their foreheads to the ground. "Don't dare." The Linglong Palace Lord looked at them coldly and said, "This Palace Lord really can't see why you don't dare to do it." The two of them shivered and didn't dare to speak again. Lord Hall Master, Guard Fan, who had been hiding in the corner, suddenly rushed out. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the Linglong Palace Master. "Palace Master, the matter is not what you see." When Protector Fan rushed out, Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose. This Protector Fan had led 3 members of the judiciary to appear when the 4 female disciples had just breathed their last. Then, he claimed that he had seen her humiliating the 4 female disciples with his own eyes. Clearly, this Guard Fan was on Hall Master Wu Yan's side. But, just now, if she wasn't mistaken, the reason why Protector Fan had rushed out at this time was because of the Emperor. It seemed like the three judges secretly gave her a look. This third judge indeed wasn't as amiable as she looked on the surface. Speak. The icy cold words were filled with majesty. The Linglong Palace Lord's chilly eyes looked towards Guard Fan. Just one look. Guard Fan was so scared that she started trembling. Chapter 41:20. With a face full of tears and snot, Guard Fan recounted what had happened just now. She emphasized that it was Yi Qing Luo who had bullied the female disciples and poisoned them when she brought the three judicial elders over. She also emphasized that the first judicial elder couldn't differentiate right from wrong and had to defend Yi Qing Luo, and stop the second judicial elder from touching the female disciples' corpses, which led to the war. In the end, it was. This battle was the reason for the first judicial elder. The second judicial elder was just defending herself. After these words were said, the first judicial elder's face turned as black as charcoal. But she didn't refute immediately as she continued to kneel on the ground respectfully. Her hands, which were placed on the ground, were clenched into fists tightly. Linglong Palace Lord's expression didn't change much when she heard what she said. Only that her gaze fell onto Yi Qing Luo for a moment. Very quickly, it shifted away. Protector Fan didn't get any response from the Palace Lord and shrunk her head guiltily and fearfully. I'm telling the truth. Did I say that I don't believe you? Linglong Palace Lord sneered. Protector Fan shivered. Linglong Palace Lord walked past the three people kneeling on the ground and walked directly towards the four female disciples' corpses. Because of the battle between the two judicial elders, the four female disciples were covered with a layer of gravel and dust. Their pitch-black faces, which were obviously heavily poisoned, were particularly eye-catching. Linglong Palace Lord's gaze swept past those few people. She looked at Yi Qing Luo. What do you want me to explain? Yi Qing Luo shrugged. You Linglong Palace ganged up to bully an outsider like me. Is there any use for me to explain? Say it, I will make the decision. Linglong Palace Lord replied. The minute she said this, Protector Fan became anxious. Palace Lord, I'm telling the truth, absolutely not a single word of lies. You must not listen to that woman's nonsense. Linglong Palace Lord glanced at her, although she didn't say a word, but her eyes flashed past a faintly discernible ridicule. Yi Qing Luo laughed. Protector Fan, I didn't say anything. How did it become a bunch of nonsense? I feel that Protector Fan has a guilty conscience. Protector Fan instantly raised her head. You're sinister and cunning. He would definitely quibble. Even the first judicial department has been bewitched by you and is fighting against the second judicial department. I just don't want Lord Hallmaster to be deceived by you. Oh. Is that so? Yi Qing Luo looked at Guardian Fan smilingly. So, in Guardian Fan's eyes, the Grand Judicial Court and Linglong Palace Lord are so easily bewitched. Guard Fan was so scared that his face turned pale. He kowtowed to the Linglong Palace Master. This subordinate absolutely did not mean that. Enough. Linglong Palace Lord's expression sunk slightly as she shouted to stop Guardian Fan and looked towards Yi Qing Luo. If there's nothing else to explain, this Palace Lord will take it as your tacit agreement. Yi Qing Luo laughed as her eyes were filled with ridicule. As for me, there's really nothing much to explain, after all. Just a little check on this corpse and the truth will eventually be revealed. Linglong Palace Lord squinted at Yi Qing Luo as she raised her voice. Men, bring the corpse down. No need. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand, stopping Linglong Palace Lord's words. Immediately following that, she leapt up and landed lightly beside Linglong Palace Lord. Following that, she bent down and lifted up a corpse on the ground. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.